It is Wednesday. It's Carlene's Friday.
That's true.
Thank you for joining us this afternoon here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Across from me, I mentioned her earlier just seconds ago. It's a fabulous, talented producer, Carlene Bragg.
Hi.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a big day.
It is a big day.
Big day.
It is a big day because it is your Friday.
It's my Friday.
Am I missing anything else?
We got the hurricane special.
We got the hurricane special tonight.
How could you forget?
I didn't. No, I didn't. I just wanted to make sure I had everything in order.
Okay. I have to switch to release tonight. So
switch to release. We have a big interview at 1 o'clock.
We do.
Care wins.
Care
that's all I'm gonna say.
wins.
That's all I'm gonna say. I'm a Care wins. We're Care wins kids.
We like to tease things.
Yes.
One word tease.
One word Care wins. So you don't want to miss that. But yeah, a big night because the Hurricane IQ special is tonight. Hurricane IQ Weather Impact Special.
I got a graphic. Hold on. Let's see.
Boom. There you go. 8 p.m. And look, it's going to be on TV. It's going to be here on WCNC Plus. So look, you have ample opportunity. There is no reason why you should miss this at all.
Tell your friends. Tell your family.
Tell your grandma, your auntie,
cousins,
everybody. You can look. You email me. Email me and remind me.
Friends, enemies. Tell everybody.
Tell everybody. And we have meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Is that we got a smile?
I don't know if I want Carlene Bragg's enemies watching the hurricane special. Although I don't know if she has any. So.
Before we get to the hurricane special, I got a question.
Yeah, what's your question?
So I went on a run this morning. It was very muggy.
Yeah.
I know you're not here to do the forecast, but like.
I mean, I can still give it.
I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I am going to put you on the spot. So I went on a run this morning, and like my throat has been very groggy. It's been very humid. Like
you're breathing in that moisture.
Is that what it is? I got a little paranoid. I didn't know if it was the Saharan dust or
he's been on and on about this dust.
I don't know. I'm just
So there's two things. So Saharan dust is normally in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere, which is why that is what impacts like our sunrises and sunsets. Now the Canadian smoke, sometimes that can get into the lower levels, but I think we talked about this last week. It's not. It's in the mid levels. Of course, that's why we need things like weather balloons, satellite data. That's how we can see that. So no air quality issues here locally. I know there were a few counties, I think south of us, that were dealing with a little bit of air quality, but I think it was a combination of a few days ago, combination of a few factors that weren't just us.
A lot of it's in my mind.
Yeah, you're a hypochondriac.
Okay, that's fine. Once I take in some information, I was thinking about it during the run, but what you're saying is because it was very humid this morning.
Yeah, no, it was disgusting.
It was. I mean,
for no lack of a better term, absolutely disgusting.
Feels like a hot tub.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
I actually had this moment. I'm not lying to you earlier. As obviously you guys as my friends now, like I teach fitness, classes and stuff, and I was thinking about it. Today actually, I was like, when people say that they're not going to take class, like during the summer, because they're like, oh, it's so warm, I can work out outside. I'm like, I literally work out inside, taking group fitness solely for the purpose of not wanting to be outside when it's like 90 degrees and disgusting. Because even in the morning, you're getting no relief. It's 72 degrees and humid.
5:30 in the morning.
That's what I'm saying.
I was drenched in sweat.
So it's just
so humid.
So it is absurd to me.
Yes.
That people actually want to do that.
That's just a note for folks as we continue to progress in the summer months. All right, so let's get to the hurricane special. Enough about my grievances.
Speaking of close to the summer months, we will likely get our first 90-degree day of the year by this weekend.
Wow.
Boom.
Mic drop. Well, I wouldn't actually drop this mic because I don't want to break it.
It's very expensive. Please don't do that.
Yeah. Brand new studio. I would never dare.
All right. So I want to mention this again. Our hurricane special is tonight. Hurricane IQ, a WCNC weather impact special. Look, the team is going to walk you through hurricane predictions for this year, take a look back at the devastation from Helene, and explain the science behind hurricanes. Talk to us about this special. I know you did a lot of work. We were talking about before the show. Talk about the work you've done and what folks can take away from this special.
I think the coolest thing about this special, and actually even after Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich finished reporting like kind of the in-between stuff, he texted me and was like, this is going to be so great. It is essentially, think of a weather IQ. If you love our weather IQs,
I do.
It's essentially a long weather IQ. So like you're kind of being woven in and out of like what's happening this year, what the forecast is, why. So like I did a new story on, like we talked about the El Nino, La Nina stuff. Majestic talks about, the storm names. Chris talks about like how a hurricane forms. And so it really is kind of like being woven through, almost as if you were writing a story about hurricanes, like talking about this year, talking about how they form, what weakens the storm. So for anybody who's really interested in not just hurricanes in general, but the science behind storms, it's going to be great. I know we're doing what weakens a hurricane, how a hurricane forms. What's another one? Oh, I did a new story on steering currents, just talking about like why hurricanes move. This is a question I got all the time at school talks, which is why I did it. Why hurricanes move east to west, because think of like a normal cold front, it normally comes northwest to southeast, like in the mountains. People are so interested in like, well, why does that move essentially west to east, but hurricanes move? So just like the complication of that forecast. And then I think on top of it, what's really unique of our special this year versus like any other hurricane special that we've ever done before is similar to what people saw in 2019 post Florence, where like Brad went out to the coast and like talked to people and things like that. We focus on the stories that even some of our reporters have told with folks in the mountains and recovery. So it's not just about weather IQ. We also go back and talk about Helene and like mountain recovery. We kind of revisit some of the stories we did last year post Helene, because as you know, and Carly knows too, there's always so much misinformation that comes out after a hurricane happens. So we go back to talk about like why Helene was so devastating. We revisit the predecessor rain event. We revisit my weather IQ, or I guess climate IQ, on what part of climate change did impact Helene and what part didn't. Because as you know, I think it's so important to hit both sides. There's a lot of, while climate change is extremely important for us weather forecasters, there's a lot of, and this is no shame to my fellow Mets, but there's a lot of people out there that really like to implement every single event to it, and that's just not the truth. So it's kind of like, I think people want to know the why and the why not, and make sure that they feel like they're getting the whole picture, and it's not just like, fear monger.
Right,
so
right.
It's not that. It is just kind of going through everything that we've had and everything that we could go through. I think also it's really helpful for people who are not from the Carolinas, maybe recently lived here, maybe last year was your first season and you're like, what the heck? Like this was awful. It goes through like ways that you can prepare, reminders about having flood insurance. If you have property even near the coast, maybe like you live in Charlotte, but let's say you have a house in Myrtle Beach, it kind of goes through what you should have there as well. How coastal flooding and beach erosion can affect you. Because that's also important too. I know we talk about this all the time, but it's 30 days normally for most flood insurance and reinsurance insurance, policies to go into effect. So it's not 2 weeks away when our WCNC weather impact team is telling you that there's storm brewing. Like that's not the time to buy flood insurance, homeowners insurance, renters, whatever it is. Make sure that your home insurance plan covers whatever you need it to cover. Things like so. I think it's like the breakdown of like what you can kind of do now to prepare for that. And I know Brad is doing a hurricane virtual talk today at 6. I don't know exactly who it's with, but we were just chatting about it last week, and I thought this was also an important note, is there's been a lot of research done as to our storms that impact us, and most of the ones that impact us the worst are not the Hugos or the Florences, that made landfall near the coast and came in. It's the ones that hit the Big Bend and come up that we end up being on that dirty side. So you think, I'm going to have to do this backwards, but you think here's where the hurricane is. No matter where the hurricane is moving, whether it's north, south, east, west, whenever you're in that northeastern quadrant, that's where the worst part of the storm is. So you think it makes landfall in the Big Bend and it goes straight up, through Alabama, Georgia. We're always on that right front quadrant or that northeast quadrant. So we're always getting heaviest rain, potentially the biggest flooding, sometimes the worst winds, and then that's where you get the tropical tornadoes as well. Just a little dusting of another little fun fact. Tropical depression, Fred, 2021 in August was the most tornado warnings that National Weather Service Greenville Spartanburg has ever issued in one day. And it was because of those quick spin up tropical tornadoes. And like what happened on Friday in York County, we know they can spin up quickly. They can be gone just as quick. So it's just an encompassment of all of those wonderful things.
And there's a lot of people,
or not wonderful things.
There's a lot of people that live here in the Carolinas, either from here or been here for a long time, that need that reminder. There are a lot of folks that are moving into the area that don't know. They have no clue.
No idea.
Oh, man.
Well, I mean, think about even just, which we've talked about this 1,000 times at this point, about how what was so devastating about Helene was that the fact that there was nothing to compare it to. So it's like you say catastrophic, devastating flooding, but how can someone in the mountains who've never experienced that, or like their parents or their grandparents haven't, because the last flood that anywhere close to that was over 100 years ago.
Right.
It's the same thing for people in the Carolinas. If you just moved here, let's say, I don't know, from New York, and nothing against New Yorkers, I'm just using that as an example, and you aren't really someone who's like keeps up to date on weather, not educated on what happened last year, you're like, you guys get impacted by hurricanes here in Charlotte? You know, like that's the assumption is that we don't, but it's actually very incorrect. Same thing as, I think post-Selena, we got a lot of questions during school talks a lot, saying that people thought that it couldn't flood in the mountains. And I'm like, well, I guess technically it floods differently because it's the landslides and the mudslides.
Sure.
Right.
Lesser than like us in Charlotte having like clogged storm drains and it's coming up this way. Well, it goes down this way. So in fact, you would argue that it's worse.
Yeah. It's
So
like
it's just
little
interesting
bowls
because I think
everywhere.
there's just
Yeah.
so much. And you know, the way that people get news and get information about weather is changing so much, and just making sure that they have a trusted source that they can come back to, and they're not just getting their weather info from, random weather pages on Facebook and TikTok and things like that.
Right.
Just reminding them, like, you trusted us during Helene, you've trusted us during every storm before then, and that we're here for you this year too. So I think it'll be nice to even just to see a new face. Majestic's brand new at our station. I think like bringing in the new member of the team. Becca's still kind of newer. She started in November, so she wasn't here during Helene. So just kind of bringing in those maybe not as familiar faces, and they're getting an opportunity to show their skill set as well. I think is important.
Y'all are experts. So trust us. This is the reason why y'all are put on our station.
Yeah. And look, a trusted face is right here on your
Right.
screen. That's Brittany Van Woerden.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait, is it me or is
I was like, Brittany, I'm talking about you, Brittany.
Because there's the screen right here. That's how I always see what's going on.
No.
Well, I think you're also a trusted source, babe.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Brittany. And look,
Except for when we're talking about humidity while running.
my throat is still a little groggy. We'll get back to that in a little bit. You know what? We'll talk about it. You're coming back at 1:30, right? We'll talk about it at 1:30. We'll clear this up because I really was paranoid this morning. I was scared. Brittany. I was scared.
Fear.
People,
yeah.
Psychological weather anxiety is a real thing.
Sure.
I have that. So
Most people, it's tornadoes, hurricanes. For Nick's tournament, it's humidity.
It's humidity. You grew up here too. Like this is a thing.
Look, it catches you off guard every time it comes around. So look, I feel much better. I'm gonna take a sip of water, and then we're gonna keep it moving.
Yeah. Well, at 1:30, I can give you a little, maybe tell you when it might be not as humid.
Okay.
We'll talk about the special, and I can give you a forecast.
I can deal with that. I can do that. Brittany Van Woerden, she'll be back. In case you just missed her, she'll be back at 1:30. Brittany, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nick.
All right. Yeah. Make sure you catch that special at 8 p.m. on WCNC Charlotte TV side and on streaming here on WCNC Plus. You see it right here. Hurricane IQ.
We can't show it enough.
We can't. Hurricane IQ weather impact special tonight at 8
Oh, speaking
p.m.
of IQ,
Yeah.
this morning you were not present for our.
You didn't remind me.
I'm
You
sorry.
didn't remind me.
You know what?
Look.
Honestly, it is my fault.
My
bad. I forgot
like,
to
"Don't
remind
blame me.
Nick that
Don't
we were
blame me."
that Chris gave us a quiz, and me and Jane did so well. We were very impressed with our own selves. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but I'm gonna pat myself on the back. I did pretty well.
Okay.
I had a lot of good knowledge. Those years of being here, being raised here, and all those, hurricane knowledge came good to use. I passed the quiz.
Brittany, do you have a quiz for us coming up at 1:30? Would you? Oh,
I don't.
No quiz?
Oh. And you know what? You should make a pop quiz just for Nick. I passed, so I don't need to take a quiz, but.
I would like to take a quiz.
This intrigues me.
Look at her.
Does it have to be about weather or hurricanes or both?
Both.
It could be both.
Hurricanes would probably be more present, but
True,
both.
false, or ABCD?
ABCD will be in.
Yeah.
Let's
or
do
a mix?
A mix.
All
We
right,
can do a
so
mix.
I got you.
Chris's
Okay.
were open-ended at some point, some too.
I failed miserably at open-ended questions. So no.
right.
Multiple choice or true or false.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll see what I can whip up in the next 45 minutes.
Okay.
All right, we'll let Brittany get to work. Again, you want to tune in tonight, Hurricane IQ Weather Impact Special tonight at 8 p.m. on TV, WCNC Charlotte, or you can stream it here on WCNC Plus. All right, so let's switch gears now. I know we have Brittany here. We're talking about the hurricane special. So let's dive into the forecast. Here's meteorologist Majestic Storm with your forecast.
Well, good Wednesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. We are starting out our Wednesday afternoon with pretty quiet conditions out there. Little sunshine, but you'll notice throughout the afternoon we'll start to see more and more cloud coverage start to move across the area. Not only will we have a cloudy afternoon, but you'll also notice that increase in humidity today. Once we're heading into the overnight hours tonight and into our Thursday, you need to be ready for our next round of rain showers that'll be moving in, and it will likely impact your Thursday morning commute. And then there we go, heading into the weekend with possibly 90-degree temperatures and more opportunities for rain showers. Yesterday we topped off at 85 degrees, and today we're forecasting 83. It's going to be a couple of degrees cooler, but hardly noticeable, because really the trade-off is that we'll cool down those air temperatures, but the humidity starts to crank back up, so it's going to feel quite muggy outside. Let's take you out to the mountains though, because this is going to be a comfortable place to be today. 72 degrees out there towards Banner Elk. Boone checking in at 75 for your forecasted high. Jefferson feeling good today, 76 degrees. From Morganton to Lenoir, let's plan for those low 80-degree temperatures. And again, getting a little lucky earlier in the day with some breaks of sunshine, but do plan for increasing cloud coverage throughout the day. Out towards the Charlotte metro area, again, rounding up those temperatures into the lower end of the 80s, so about 83 for your forecasted high in Concord, 82 for Monroe, and 83 for our good friends out there towards Rock Hill. This is our dew points over the next 7 days, so really measuring the moisture in the atmosphere, determining if it's going to be a muggy and sticky day. And once we start to see them really rise back into the mid to upper 60s, and surely with dew points into the 70s, you will feel that, especially as we're heading towards Friday and Saturday. This upcoming weekend is going to be muggy if you do have any plans. Here's our hour-by-hour forecast throughout the rest of our Wednesday. Temperatures mainly into the 70s as we're heading into the first half of the day. Into the afternoon though, notice no more sunshine. It'll be all about the cloud coverage. Temperatures still right around our seasonal average, but those clouds are just the beginning of some changes that are ahead. This is our precipitation over the next 10 days, and we'll have several opportunities for rain showers. The first one, again, moving in for your Thursday morning commute. Small chances on Friday, and then they do increase back up as you're heading towards your Saturday. We're watching this tropical disturbance right here, this area of low pressure just off the coast of Florida, Georgia, heading up towards the Carolinas. As it makes its way inland, it loses its strength, so really this is just going to be a rainmaker for us. So we'll start to see the impacts of that, again, moving in on Thursday, and likely the highest rain total is going to be east of Charlotte. Let's walk you through that futurecast, though, breaking it down just a bit more. Here's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're picking up those kids after school, or if they have any after-school sports events, I'm not seeing any issues there. Yes, a much more cloudier afternoon, and then those rain showers. There's 3 o'clock Thursday morning, so while many of us will still be asleep, those rain showers start to move in, but again, impacting that morning time commute, taking us all the way through the lunchtime hour. It's not going to be widespread. Not everyone will receive it, but a good portion of our viewing area will, and even some pockets of heavy downpours not out of the question. This is now taking us through our Friday. We'll start to see a few pop-up showers here and there, but generally we do have just a lower percentage for those rain showers to move in. All right, 7-day forecast. Here we go. Around 70, around 83 for our high today. Our average high for this time of the year is 84, so not too far off. A cooler day for your Thursday. We'll see those temperatures drop back down into the 70s. This upcoming weekend, boy, we are bringing that heat. Upper 80s, possible 90-degree temperatures on Saturday, but more clouds, showers, and thunderstorms are ahead. Stay close to our weather team and have a great day.
And that was a look at the forecast. A beautiful day. I got a chance to go outside too.
I took your advice, kind of like your lead, because you said, you know, you try to take a second to go outside before you come in here so that you have some sort of, you know.
Yeah. You feel better though.
I did feel better. I went outside, had to get my phone charger. You know how it is. But I took a little walk around the parking lot, and
you haven't done that in a long time.
I haven't done that in a long time. I used to do
that was your jam.
Daily. I used to walk around the parking lot. I had to get my steps in.
And you felt better.
Oh yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
feel better going outside.
You do.
So, all right, where we want to go to? We want to go to, okay, so there is a unity rally happening in Colorado right now. And this, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Carlene, this is in response to that horrific attack.
I believe.
In Colorado over the weekend there. And also with concerns growing over the rise of incidents of anti-Semitic hate crimes across the country. Again, law enforcement agents continue to investigate Sunday's attack on a group of pro-Israel demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado. Let's take a listen in to this unity rally that's happening right now in Colorado.
Thank you all for coming this morning.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. That rally is just wrapping up. Again, that is a unity rally happening in Colorado. Again, this comes as law enforcement agents continue to investigate Sunday's fiery attack on a group of pro-Israel demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado. There. All right, so we want to shift away from that. We want to go somewhere else right now. We want to go to this. You're looking live. This is in Washington, D.C. So what's happening here is Secretary of Education Linda McMahon is testifying in front of the House and Committee on Education and Workforce, examining the policies and priorities of the Department of Education. Let's take a listen in.
$7 million fine that was placed against Grand Canyon University. Can you explain why that happened?
Let me think for a second. Let me review my notes on that because there were a couple of things I wanted to make sure I covered with you. We really found that the accusations against Grand Canyon, which is a faith-based organization, and we looked at all the facts of the case.
I am familiar with the university.
Really,
my question is, how are those students going to be made whole if you are not allowing the university to pay the fines? What's the plan?
I'm not sure that that's the right analysis of it, but I will look into it further and get back to you.
And you'll give me back a writing?
Yes, I will.
Writing? Okay. Because we know that, you know, the president in whom you serve had a fraudulent university called Trump University, and he himself settled 3 lawsuits before becoming president. We know that there are roughly 1.4 million borrowers who have been approved for a borrower defense discharge and are still waiting for that process. How are you clearing out that backlog?
In terms of the borrowed defense funds?
Uh-huh.
There are lists of that. I'll be happy to get back to you with those numbers.
Okay. And while those students wait, can you give us a commitment that you are not going to collect that debt?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that as to what the situation is. And
I don't understand how that's a difficult question to say yes to. They've been defrauded. They are waiting for relief. While they wait for their relief,
well,
they shouldn't have to pay back that debt.
Well, if they've been defrauded and it's been adjudicated that they've been defrauded, then I will get back to you as to what the time frame is and why there's a holdup if there is.
Okay.
I'm not sure as I sit here right now.
Wonderful. There was, I know that you've been questioned a lot on IDEA and its funding. I won't re-litigate those questions. I just have 2 particular questions to address, or 2 areas to address. We know that the IDEA, that you have gotten rid of the legal team that guides the states in implementation. How are you going to rectify that?
I don't know what you mean by we've gotten rid of the legal team. We have had some reduction in force of
There was a
members.
firing of the entire legal team.
Well, we have other lawyers in place, at the Department of Education, and we are
The
fully...
entire team that was for IDEA has been fired. So how are you addressing that?
Because we have other lawyers who are in place that can handle those things. And as I mentioned before, we have not missed any of our statutory requirements.
Well, I do believe that that firing hurts the implementation. We also know that you have gutted the Office of Civil Rights when there is already investigation backlog. How are you going to fix the discrimination claim cases that are out there?
Well, there are, excuse me, there are cases that we're looking into. And again, we have not missed any of our statutory requirements in terms of OCR. We also have a task force.
There is a backlog. There are a lot of kids in our schools that are waiting for relief. When you get rid of the people that are supposed to carry out those investigations, how are you to assure that those kids will not continue to be harmed? We are talking about so many situations in where kids are being discriminated against, and you got rid of the people that investigate those investigations so those kids can protect themselves from discrimination.
Well, we still have a very strong and capable staff in OCR.
Then you wouldn't have a backlog if that was the case. There is a current backlog, and I would love for you to stop just saying words and to actually do the work that you are charged by statute, and I yield back.
I thank the gentlelady. I recognize now the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Secretary McMahon, for being here today and for your continued public service to our country. As you likely know, I've co-chaired the Bipartisan Career and Technical Education Caucus for more than a decade, and I'm proud to be the champion for CTE here on the Hill, alongside my good friend, Congresswoman Bonamici. Madam Secretary, during your confirmation hearing, I was glad to hear about your commitment to providing more alternative pathways to traditional four-year degrees, leaning on career and technical education to help achieve that goal. As the author of the Strengthening Career and Technical Education for the 21st Century Act, signed into law by President Trump in 2018, I'm thrilled to see the growth and the success of these programs. Typically, when I visit these programs today, I see waiting lists. I see schools actually investing in bricks and mortar to expand their footprint to be able to accommodate more secondary and post-secondary students, really working to restore rungs and a ladder of opportunity for so many. Today, a record nearly 12.5 million students nationwide, a number that has continued to grow since 2018, are served in career and technical education programs. At the secondary level, students are graduating from CTE pathways at an amazing 96% rate, far higher than the national average. High school CTE concentrators are also more likely to be employed full-time and have higher earnings 8 years post-graduation than their counterparts. Great pathway to success in life. Madam Secretary, would you agree that CTE programs help incentivize workforce and skills development?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, the reason that we obviously know this information is and can track the CTE success and made positive reforms in 2018 was because of the data. Without good data, it's hard to make good decisions as members of Congress. Now, I've written about this issue to you before, but I'm still concerned about the department's decision to cancel the National Evaluation of Career and Technical Education under Perkins. This 5-year evaluation was mandated by law in Perkins 5. It was set to be completed this year as Congress begins our work to reauthorize Perkins. It's time to do Perkins 6 here, reauthorization time. And when you reauthorize, you want to refine, you want to improve, you want to maximize opportunities. We need data to do that. It's better to educate or to legislate based on data, not emotion. So, Madam Secretary, how does the department plan to ensure there's still a national level evaluation infrastructure in place to support evidence-based policymaking in CTE while not losing the nearly 5 years worth of data that's already been collected?
Well, we're going to continue to collect the data that we need to collect, and we want to make sure that the Perkins program is, as we look, I think as Congress, we want to provide to you the best data that is possible. So we have made some changes in some of the educational data collecting that we are doing. I'm not sure, as I sit here at this moment, if that's really pertinent to the Perkins data so much as it was the NAEP scoring and other educational policies. And I'd like to get back to you after I clarify that.
Yeah, that'd be great, and I look forward to working with you, because it would cause me concern that on year 6 of collecting that data, we use a different methodology. I mean, we need consistency, right? In terms of data, consistency is important in the statistical collection of data. So, quite frankly, I look forward to working with you, because we need to go back and finish the process the way we legislated and the way we did the first 5 years. I think they'll set us up nicely for doing a great Perkins 6 reauthorization. You know, additionally, the administration's FY 2026 budget proposes reprioritizing CT grants so that they only support middle and high school students at the district level. However, under current law, states are explicitly granted the flexibility to decide how to best split their CT resources between secondary and post-secondary systems, as post-secondary CT programs continue to provide valuable pathways for learners of all ages. And these are incredible programs that I take every opportunity to be able to visit those, to see the fruits of the legislative work that I did with President Trump under Trump 45. With the modernizing career and technical education for the 21st century. Can you explain why the administration is seeking to limit CT funds to K-12, despite Perkins law explicitly supporting student transitions beyond high school, including into apprenticeship and other post-secondary pathways? Yeah, another area that I look forward to working personally with you on.
Thank you. I'd look forward to that as well. I know the President is certainly, and the budget supports the directive of the President's executive order, preparing Americans for high-paying, skilled jobs, and that's one of the things that we'd like to focus on as well.
That'd be great. The action by the department was kind of contrary to that. Very familiar with that executive.
Gentleman's time has
order.
expired.
Oh.
I thank the gentleman.
Thank you.
Secretary.
I now recognize the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Harris.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Madam Secretary, for being here and for your patience and endurance throughout this hearing. There's been a lot said about the closing of the Department of Education and the activities that are being ensued. But, Madam Secretary, I want to ask you, is education mentioned in our Constitution?
I don't believe it is in directives or agencies mentioned in the Constitution.
Correct. Our 10th Amendment says that the powers not delegated to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to who exactly?
States.
The states and the people.
Yes.
And my wife teaches 8th grade U.S. history, and I think even her 8th graders can piece together that if it's not mentioned in the Constitution, it must fall to the states and to the people. Sadly, some of our federal judges need to go back to the 8th grade and have that kind of class. Let me ask you this. Do you think a single district judge should be able to stop the constitutional actions of a president?
Well, I certainly think that is a question now that is before the courts, and is being, I think it will be properly adjudicated.
Well, unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. Judge Juan in Boston issued a preliminary injunction to stop several of President Trump's education-related executive orders, including the one directing you to take steps to close the department. So I want to take a moment just to set the record straight for the nation and ask you, did President Trump's executive order in March about closing the department ever tell you to ignore the law?
No, in fact, it says specifically in the executive order to do it lawfully.
Exactly. It very clearly says, and let me just quote it for the record, the Secretary of Education shall, to the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law, take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return authority over education to the states and local communities while ensuring the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. It seems that Congress is the one out of line with the Constitution in establishing a Department of Education in the first place. And I, for one, happen to agree 100% with you and President Trump that we must send education back to our states. But that process doesn't mean ignoring the laws on the books. So what steps?
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertman. Right now, you're taking a live look. This is Washington, D.C. as Secretary of Education Linda McMahon testifies in front of a House committee. This will be happening for a while. So we'll get back to this in just a moment. Let's put a pin in this. Let's come back home here to Charlotte. So, all right, so if you head down I-77, you may see some structures. Mm-hmm. You keep going
some
down.
Swirly whirls.
Yeah,
you know,
swooshy. I'm just making up stuff right now.
We're making up words.
Bear with us. So if you go down I-77, you get closer, you'll see a sign that says Carowinds.
That's right.
Let me tell you. So I grew up an hour and a half away from Carowinds. Mm-hmm. I'm a Carowinds kid.
Yep. Same.
That hour and a half drive to Carowinds felt like 5 hours. So I was just so excited to get there.
Yep.
That was probably our family vacation, like 5 years in a row, going to Carowinds.
That was our part.
It
if
was.
you lived in the Carolinas, like that was what you had.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Look, Carowinds is a great time. Some of my favorite rides back in the day. Thunder Road. Do you remember Thunder Road?
Oh, I remember Thunder Road.
Where you can go forward and backwards. Top Gun is called. I believe it's called Afterburn now. But they renamed it. But it's one of the first rides you see, depending on what side you enter. But anyway. Love Carowinds growing up.
Yep.
Still a fun. I told you 5 years in a row we did this.
Yes.
On top of Boy Scout trips.
Yep.
And on top of just other activities I was involved in, Little League teams and everything else. Here's a shot of Carowinds. This is a live look over Carowinds. You see those coasters going. That looks like fun. I'm jealous. We're not far from the park.
We're really not far.
We're not far.
Go.
Look, don't threaten me with a good time, Carlene. We'll drop down to Carowinds right now. All right, and look, the cool thing about Carowinds is that there are always new things to discover.
That's right.
When it comes to this park. This park is, a portion of it is in, of course, North Carolina, but another portion is in South Carolina. That makes it unique. Over 400 acres there. I want to bring in Chris Fauci. He is the regional manager and public relations for Carowinds, Six Flags Over Georgia, and Six Flags Whitewater. Chris, thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News. Talk about some of the new attractions happening there at Carowinds, if you can hear me. Maybe he doesn't hear me.
He might not be able to hear me.
Let's get back to the shot. We'll figure it out. Again, Carowinds is one of those places where, again, we did Boy Scout trips. I think our Little League football team went there one year. Obviously, we did family vacation there. And I remember some of my earliest memories, because my brother is about 9 years older than me. He would go to Carowinds and he would ride the Thunder Road backwards. And I remember I did it once. And it was a wooden roller coaster. It was around when the park first opened decades ago. I remember riding the roller coaster backwards and telling myself, yeah, I'm not doing that again.
Yep.
But it was still a good time. Still a good time. So many folks are out there. So many kids are out there. It's one of those days. It's humid outside, but it's a great day to be out there in Carowinds. Carowinds has some new attractions happening this year. Some of those new attractions, I actually have a list. So they have 2 new rides in the Camp Snoopy area. In addition to that, they have a new adults-only area at the Carolina Arbor Shore Club. We got Chris? Yeah. All right. So look, Chris, I wasn't stalling. I was for real just trying to let people know. Hey, look, you're talking to one of Carowinds' biggest fans. Again, this is Chris Fauci here with Carowinds, regional manager, public relations. Chris, thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News, man.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
How was that intro? How did that do? Did I stick the landing?
You did great. You crushed it.
All right, so talk about some of the, and I mentioned this earlier, we have some new attractions this year, and that's the unique part about Carowinds. There's always something new to discover there. You have 2 new rides in the Camp Snoopy area. Talk about that.
Man, we have added almost 20 rides in 10 years, which is, to your point, that's unheard of. There is a lot going on at Carowinds. It seems like we're always adding stuff. This year, we've added 2 new major attractions at Camp Snoopy. And then also an adults-only area inside our Carolina Harbor Water Park called Carolina Harbor Shore Club. So, a little bit for everything. We've got 2 new major kiddie rides for the younger and young at heart, and then the bar and the swim-up bar area for the adults. So, kind of just appealing to all bases.
And I mentioned this earlier, why my family and folks I grew up with continue to go back to Carowinds over and over throughout the years. Well, what brings people back, like other people back? Like, why do people continue to go to Carowinds?
I mean, I think a great example for that is the Carolina Harbor Shore Club, the adults-only pool area that we've just added. You can make a whole day out of that one single attraction alone. If you want to go to the water park, that can be a whole day. If you want to go and ride roller coasters in the theme park, that can be a whole day. Or you can hit rides and slides in the same day and make the most of it. We also try to roll out new events every year. This year in July, we're rolling out a new event called Viva La Fiesta. It's a kind of a celebration of Latin culture with food and flair. And then, in the fall, we have our 25th season for Scarewinds. So we're going all out. And then, in the winter, we have Winterfest, which is our holiday celebration. So like you said, there is always something to do at Carowinds.
All right, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is a ride, an attraction that sticks out for you?
I mean, I'm a big fan of Fury 325. Obviously, it's 10 years. It's its 10-year anniversary this year. It's been named world's best roller coaster, and it's right here in Charlotte. One of the best thrilling attractions that you can get anywhere in the world is right here on the state line. So very proud of that. Also had the privilege of, helping roll out that coaster and introduce it back in 2015. So it kind of holds a special place in my heart, but, I love it all. I can spend all day here. I do because I work here, but I love all the rides. There's just so much.
Don't tell me, are you the guy that screams in a roller coaster, makes the weird faces whenever they take the pictures of folks' reaction?
I've been known to make a weird face just for fun, when they take your picture. But I mean, I've been at this for a minute now, and I mean, I can carry on a conversation on a roller coaster now. I mean, it's fun and thrilling, but it's just another Monday for me.
Nice. But before I let you go, I think this is important. I know folks go out to Carowinds to have a great time, but what should families and either group trips keep in mind when they go out to the park?
I think if you're general public and you're just looking to visit, if you want a tip, I would say if it's a little overcast outside or if there's just been the slightest hint of rain, that is a great time to visit, just because the lines are a little lower and you can kind of just walk on rides and, our entertainment is very accessible. I would definitely download the Carowinds app. We've rolled out a new AR experience in Camp Snoopy that's available through the free mobile app that you can play games and kind of interact with your surroundings. While you're waiting in the queue lines at Camp Snoopy is really fun. You can kind of do challenges and you climb the leaderboard. I would say definitely that. And, a great reminder is that the water park is included with general admission. So you can hit rides and slides in one day. Other than that, just have fun.
All right, thank you for your time, Chris. That's Chris Fulshi, Regional Manager, Public Relations for Carowinds. Thank you for your time, man. And look, I'm going to try to get out there this year. I said last year I was going to do it. Summer just slipped by, and yeah, the 2024 was just a blur, but I'm going to make it out there this year.
You got to do it. Snoopy's Racing Railway is now open. That's our newest roller coaster. And we have another major new attraction opening at Camp Snoopy a little bit later this year called Charlie Brown's River Raft Blast, where guests get on it and kind of have a water battle back and forth as they go through the ride. So definitely put it on your agenda, and we hope to see you out.
All right, man. Thank you again for your time. Again, that is Chris Fulshi with Carowinds. Yeah, man, Carowinds is a good time, y'all.
It's a great time.
It's a great time, man. So, one story I thought about is the last time my mom rode a roller coaster. This is about, it's probably been over 20 years at this point. And so my mom got into like a roller coaster kick one year. She got into a kick. She just wanted to hop on every roller coaster that we were going to hop on. Very unusual for my mom. My mom is not a roller coaster person at all.
But she had a kick.
She did, and so she got on the roller coasters. She did it, and that was the last year. That was the last year. She didn't say why. She did all the roller coasters, and that was it. That was it. Okay. I don't know what happened. I gotta ask her. She's probably watching right now. I'm sure she's watching.
Hi, Mom.
Hey. But one year she got on a roller coaster. She got on all the roller coasters. I thought she had a great time. Yeah. I thought this was going to be a thing. Yeah. And it wasn't a thing.
I'm a roller coaster gal myself.
I love roller coasters. I love roller coasters.
Speaking of, he talked about Fury.
I haven't been on this one.
You haven't been on this one? Oh, you got. Oh, sorry, my bad. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Look, that's the best part about a roller coaster. Going up. It's going up. It ascends, and then
we're getting there.
And then your heart drops.
And then your heart drops. It's so much fun.
And now I'm invested now, so I got to see it drop.
I wish I had the audio here to hear that.
I know.
That's what's happening right now.
But yeah, I love roller coasters. We got to get out there. Look, maybe we can have the show out.
If the higher ups are listening, we would love to be at Carowinds for an episode. Just saying.
That'd be pretty cool. Okay. That'd be pretty cool.
Putting it out there. We got to manifest.
Look, if you missed that interview, we'll have that interview up soon on YouTube, on the WCNC Charlotte YouTube page, also on WCNC.com. All right, so let's turn our attention back to D.C., where Secretary of Education Linda McMahon continues to testify in front of the House Committee on Education and Workforce, examining the policies and priorities of the Department of Education. Let's take a listen to that.
And I also want to ask you this. We subsidize these degrees. The idea that these schools walk around and say they're private really is false, because they couldn't opt a beneficiary of the United States government. So does it make sense perhaps for us to look at the ideas of saying, if you want to get a student loan to go to the college in the United States, you've got to go get a degree in something where you actually might be able to do something useful when you're done with it?
Well, I think that's one of the things when I was discussing before, that I would like to see colleges and universities have more skin in the game. Because if they have more skin in the game, I think that they're going to make sure that the subjects and the degrees that they are offering are going to provide diplomas and pathways to employment in which those students are going to be able to repay their loans, because if they're on the hook for part of that money, they're not going to want to have to pay it if that student is not successful.
Well, I just want to close by thanking you and President Trump for what you're doing, because you are fighting a fight. One of the backlogs that I didn't hear the Democrats ask about are all the investigations of anti-Semitism on college campuses, which conveniently weren't worked on when he was president. And thank you for dealing with that backlog. But know that I'm prepared to work with you and the president on any of these issues whenever you need it. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Congressman.
I thank the gentleman, and I recognize the gentleman from Indiana for the last word in questioning, Mr. Messmer.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary, for being here. Secretary McMahon, we've heard all kinds of scaremongering from the left that you're ignoring Congress or blatantly violating the law, particularly when it comes to fraud, waste, and abuse that you've eliminated in the department. I think that's simply ridiculous. Can you reaffirm once again that your department is following the law and will continue to execute all laws passed by Congress?
Yes, sir, we will.
Thank you. Also, how will the department balance the needs of localities to remain flexible in their CTE delivery to respond to local workforce needs while also ensuring programs are not hijacked with woke ideology by unelected bureaucrats?
Well, we are continuing the funding for CTE, and that's, I couldn't be more strongly supportive of our career technical education programs. And I want to see them started earlier in schools, middle schools, high schools, community colleges. I think there are many pathways to opportunities for success, for employment. And I think that we have to make sure that we are continuing to focus on developing those. Whether it's public-private partnerships, there are, I know, a lot of companies that work with community colleges to put funds into those community colleges to help develop curriculum. For instance, I know in West Virginia, there is a program that Toyota has come in. They actually have built a Toyota Center at one of the community colleges, and the students who are there train in the plant, and they take part of the courses at the Toyota Center, and it's a workforce built in.
In my district as well.
And so those are the kinds of things that we want to see continuing to happen.
Thank you. And we need to maintain local flexibility because the workforce needs across the country are very diverse. So thank you.
Yes, they are.
Yes, thank you. Also, the state of Indiana has been a leader in school choice programs, leading the charge in voucher initiatives and creating a comprehensive educational agenda for K through 12 education that will ensure families have the best access to educational opportunities and choices. What are the steps is the department planning for returning school policy decisions back to the state and local level to help ensure states like Indiana better achieve their pro-family, pro-student education policy goals?
Well, we want to make sure that, that we're offering the opportunity, I think, for freedom, for choice, for freedom of choice in the schools. So by increasing the charter school budget, that one of the things that the president would like to see opportunities for more charter schools to get started. And often charter schools, and I haven't talked about this today, they're often started, in low economic areas to provide education for those students that are kind of being left behind and aren't performing at levels that other students are. And so when we have this choice and competitive factors, in our states, we are seeing the levels across all schools. A rising tide, lifts all boats, and it does give opportunities when we have the choice that the president would like to see.
Thank you. In Indiana, we've seen the highest utilization of charter schools in low-income minority areas and benefits those students the most. So thank you.
Thank you. And I've visited, not in Indiana, but I have visited some of those charter schools in lower economic areas and seen the results, because it's often, those lower economic students are often so overlooked and said, well, there's no need to waste any money there, because that's where we need to spend money to make sure that they have equal opportunity as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, and I yield back my time.
I thank the gentleman, and I want to thank the committee for your attention to this hearing today. And I want to thank the Secretary for your diligence in being here, your patience, the time that was expended. It's been a long hearing. We appreciate you being here. There are no further questions, so now I recognize the ranking member for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the Secretary for being with us today. We're here today to consider the effect of the President's 2026 budget on programs within the jurisdiction of the Committee on Education and Workforce. And we begin that consideration while legislation passed by the House and pending in the Senate showers tax breaks on the wealthy and cuts Medicaid, SNAP, and funding for programs that give access to college while adding trillions of dollars of additional debt. On top of the cuts in that bill, the 2026 proposal further cuts Pell Grants, reduces work-study, eliminates Gear Up and TRIO programs. And as we consider the 2026 budget, we also consider the federal court orders that have ordered the administration to stop dismantling the Department of Education without congressional authority. We have heard of problems of test scores, but no plan to do anything about it. Handcuffs on teachers, when whatever handcuffs there may be, are locally imposed, not on federal government. We've heard that There's no federal role in curriculum, teacher quality, or anything like that. And it's been emphasized that what the Department of Education responsibility is basically civil rights, to make sure that all children have access to a quality education. So we've heard support for vouchers, but we know that those programs have not been shown to improve education, but have been shown to increase racial segregation. And finally, Mr. Chairman, you rescued the Secretary when I asked whether or not viewpoint diversity is a violation of Title VI. I guess we'll get that as an answer later. I cited the statutory requirement that if you're going to take any action under Title VI, claiming anti-Semitism or any other violation of Title VI, you have to give notice to the committees of jurisdiction. Mr. Chairman, she indicated she may have given notice, and if so, you haven't shared that information with the Democrats on the committee, and I'd like to see that because it requires before any action can be taken, you have to provide a complete report on that situation and wait at least 30 days before any action has been taken. We'll just see what the answer to that is, and I'll look for an answer from you. But we have a lot of work to do. We're trying to improve education, and from a federal level, the cuts in education, no increase, inflationary increase on Title I. That's a major investment we make in K through 12, cuts in Pell Grants and student loans. That's our major investment, and access to college. I think we're going in the wrong direction, and hopefully we can, when legislation is considered by the House, we can make the appropriate adjustments. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I thank the gentleman as well, and we look forward to continue working and discussing with you what's going on. And we've been pretty busy doing that effort in the one big beautiful bill and reconciliation. As you know, we've been extremely busy on that with the purpose of making things better for the taxpayers and for the students, the universities, community colleges, trade schools, workforce Pell, all of the rest for quite some time here now. And we look forward to more fully involving ourselves with the budget proposed by the President, and even as we started today. But I'd also state that 2 years while the Democrats had the full majority, including White House, the House, and the Senate, the opportunities to improve education in multiple ways, even as being expressed by some of my Democrat colleagues now, it didn't happen. And being a student of history to some degree myself, looking back and seeing the impact of education in this country that produced such revolutions as the agricultural revolution, industrial revolution, communications revolution, space age, all of the rest came before the Department of Education. Before. With more local control. With K-12 systems under the control of the states and local communities, school boards, parents. Right now, we're attempting to go that direction. And it was disconcerting to hear some of my colleagues talk about doing away with health care, lunch programs, et cetera, for students, when in fact, that's not the case. And our President stood very, very strong in saying that Medicaid, Medicare, school lunches were not to be cut from deserving individuals. Waste, fraud, and abuse, yes. My colleagues voted for waste, fraud, and abuse to be continued. But today we're looking at what we can do to get to a place where the Department of Education is at its right spot. And our gentleman, a colleague from North Carolina, so eloquently pointed out that in our U.S. Constitution we don't have the responsibility for education except what we have taken outside of the Constitution. So it'll be hard constantly to experience the efforts of an administration committed to following the Constitution relative to states' rights and responsibilities for education. It'll also be confounding to some that better service can come from a smaller, more efficient bureaucracy. And certain states are taking education improvement into their own hands and succeeding, and others will have to decide to compete as well if they will follow. True choice in education will handle so much diversity. Bias will generally fail under its own weight. Having a light on the extent of the ingrown, one-sided liberal bias on our public campuses will be threatening, but change, I believe, will result from that. The Congressional Budget Office, in relative to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, was off by 180 degrees. They costed out a $1.5 trillion shortfall that would result from the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It was just the opposite, $1.5 trillion to the good. And I believe what we've just done, reconciliation, and the One Big Beautiful Bill, will be a facilitator for a lot of growth and opportunity. Again, students, parents, teachers, if we get those three component parts right in education, we will succeed. And that involves local district control as well. So I appreciate the passionate debate that went on today, the questioning, the answers, and sometimes answers that couldn't be given because it was based on questions without fact. Thank you again for being with us. With no further business before the committee, I call it adjourned.
This is a live look in D.C. right now, Washington, D.C., where Secretary of Education Linda McMahon testifying in front of the House Committee on Education and Workforce. It looks like it wrapped up for the day. It looks like it's wrapping up for the day. So there is that. You got a chance to check out a chunk of this hearing that took place. All right. As promised, Brittany Van Voorhees back here. And
guess who's back?
Brittany is
back
here.
Again.
Look, okay. So I gotta make sure I get this.
Okay.
I want to plug it. So tonight at 8 p.m., our Weather Impact team will host Hurricane IQ, a WCNC Weather Impact special. They'll walk you through the hurricane predictions for this year. You see the graphic right here. Take a look back at the devastation from Helene and explain the science behind hurricanes. Guys, you don't want to miss this because it will help you be prepared this hurricane season. You can catch it on air or streaming on WCNC Plus tonight at 8 o'clock. All right, Brittany, now to my question.
Mm-hmm. That is not related to hurricanes.
It's not related to the hurricane special. So my question is, what is a good time for me to go running in the morning?
There's no good time. There's absolutely no good time.
It's always all about Dick.
I already told you this earlier.
I was just like, let me get this question out of the way. Then we can get to more important stuff.
We're entering the time of year in which there's, in my opinion, no good time.
Can you tell like my voice is a little like weaker?
Just because it was humid this morning and you ingested more water vapor, that you're fine.
Does drinking water help?
I mean, yeah, it clears your throat.
Okay. All right.
You'd also go and hawk a
I'm not going to do that on the mic. All right.
He'll do it after we're done.
Question aside. All right. We have the hurricane special tonight. This is important. You guys do great work, fantastic work, Weather Impact team. And you guys put a lot of work into this special. Can you go into, I know you talked about it earlier, sort of the behind the scenes, like what it took to put this together, because this is not an easy thing to do at all.
Yeah, it certainly is. And our amazing executive producer, Spencer, did most of the heavy lifting, I think. But honestly, one of the big things that Chris and I did, just specifically the two of us, is we kind of went back in the catalog of old weather IQs. It's essentially, the best way I can describe it is it's a big, fat, juicy weather IQ.
Okay.
And so we went back and just kind of revisited old stories that we had done, whether it was, what weakens a hurricane, why do hurricanes move the way they do because of steering currents, what's rapid intensification, and we were able to pick out, what was good to use again. We redid some, made them even better. Brought in some of the new members of the team, Becca just joined us in November, so while she's done some phenomenal weather IQs, hasn't done one on the tropics yet. Majestic's brand new, and so was able to bring her in, and she's not from this area, so she's also kind of learning as she goes.
Where's
A lot of people
Majestic
moving
from?
up the Pacific Northwest.
Okay,
But, so she's learning just like people who just moved to the Carolinas, what she needs to do to prepare. So that's really great, and of course, as always, the one, the only chief meteorologist, Brad Panovich, kind of weaves it all together for you. So what you can expect is, again, a big, nice weather IQ, focusing starting on the season, El Nino, La Nina impacts, what the storm names are, which storms have been retired, and then we'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the little different weather stories that we've had. What I think will be unique about this one this year, and I know I mentioned this before when we talked, was there will be a lot, obviously, focus on Helene. And so we have some stories from our reporters on rebuilding efforts up in the mountains. I do believe we have some stories from our sister station at WMY, kind of talking about other places further west in Asheville, Chimney Rock, things like that. And then one thing I'm always passionate about, which both of you guys in this room with me know, is the climate change impact and making sure people understand what was and was not an impact of climate change. Because as we talked about, sometimes people are quick to jump on the bandwagon one way or the other. And so just kind of breaking down the specific science as to what did enhance or what did not enhance. So I think if you love weather, it'll be great. If you love hurricanes, it will be even better. And I also think, which we actually joked about this, just the two of us, about the whole your throat thing earlier, but it's actually a very true phenomena, is what people get weather and climate anxiety, especially when they've been through something, whether it's a tornado or a hurricane or just bad severe storms. So I think also one of the same reasons why we do, education efforts with going to schools and things like that, people feel better about preparing for weather if they know what to expect and they kind of know how to prepare for it. They'll feel more confident. It's the same reason why, you go get your passport, weeks before going on a trip. You want to be prepared. Why? Unless you're me, you don't, pack the night before, for an international trip or something. The preparation is key. So I think that will be nice too, to kind of give people that opportunity. Plus, we talk about it all the time. You see thousands of different, it seems, license plates on the roads here in the Carolinas. There's just so many people who are not from here, and it doesn't even just mean Charlotte specifically, just not from the Carolinas in general. And so because we're such a melting pot and such a big baking city in surrounding areas, it's just important to give people a reminder, if you're Carlene Bragg and you're from Charleston, or if you've never lived in a hurricane-prone area before, or just telling people in the first place that they can be impacted by hurricanes.
I wanted to ask you earlier about, I was like, well, let me save this question for now. What did you learn from this, putting this together? Anything? I mean, because I feel like you know everything.
I do not know everything.
You know a lot, Brittany.
I have
it's pretty impressive.
Well, I have a unique, perception, I guess.
Your recall is amazing.
Well, I also, I grew up in Atlanta, Atlanta in Georgia, but I moved to Florida when I was 14 going into high school. So I lived in Central Florida, the Villages, shout out, for 4 years. And I lived in Gainesville. I went to the University of Florida. And so working and living in Central Florida and seeing impacts from that, and how a hurricane, we could have no school, and then the next day it's sunny because the storm moved. Obviously forecasting different in 2007 than it is today because, in your 30s. But then going to Myrtle Beach and getting South Carolina, seeing Matthew and Irma and all those storms back to back, then moving back to Florida and being through some of their worst storms, and then moving back here, it's just, I always say that my bread and butter is severe weather and hurricane forecasting. If I moved to somewhere like Seattle, it would not be a good situation for me because I just don't have that. But my bread and butter forecasting wise is this, and I do have a good memory, and so I think the combination of the two is very helpful. Plus, even just being out in the elements. Can't tell you how many tropical storms and hurricanes I've been out in. Trying to make sure people know what's going on safely, of course. But, you know, you do it a few times, and it's like riding a bike next tournament.
So we put you on the spot earlier to create a quiz. Carlene and Jane.
Well, I did not create it. I really just found some good questions.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so am I asking you guys both?
Sure.
Yeah.
Or are we going to
Yeah, you
bop
can
back
ask
and
us
forth?
both.
And just to set this up, Chris Mulcahy gave Jane and Carlene a quiz this morning.
I aced it.
You aced it.
I'm going to
Jane?
pat myself on the back here. Jane also aced it.
Jane-
We did very well.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to go through a few. It won't probably be anything, you know, uber specific, but
Okay.
okay, so first, see how good your recall is.
Okay.
Okay.
What part of a hurricane is generally the most damaging? Front, middle, right, left, back?
I'm gonna go back.
I was going to say front.
I'm gonna say back because you prepare for the front and then the eye of the storm, and then the back comes, and that's when it's, you know, you have your guard down.
Well, I thought the back would be when it kind of, because the front gets the brunt of it, and then by the back comes around, it's died down a little bit. In my head, that's what makes sense to me.
It is right.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, we both are wrong.
Yeah, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Okay, so yeah, so we actually talked about this earlier. So this is a storm. Based on its forward motion, it's always this side of the storm that's the worst.
Oh.
Because based on the counterclockwise rotation, counterclockwise rotation, basically when a storm comes inland, the drag from like the bands is what spins up tropical tornadoes. So that's why you won't get them on the left side, because the band isn't spinning that way.
Okay.
And
So
Brittany,
that's tornado-wise, and then also just so happens that the right front quadrant, because remember, it's where it's moving, is also where you see the strongest winds.
and Brittany was giving us this look like, I gotcha.
She did get us. She did get us, though. She
Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. All right. Actually, we were just talking about this the other day, even though it's not expected to form. What is one characteristic of a subtropical storm that's different than a tropical storm? 1, it is a warm core. Or 2, it is a cold core. Because remember, the system off the Carolina coast, we've been talking about the chance that it could become subtropical. Now, it's not expected to be clear. So what's the difference between subtropical and tropical? I will give you an extremely obvious hint. Tropical happens during summer when it's 90 degrees. So do we think tropical systems are warm or cold core?
Warm.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We're back in the ball game.
Well, I guess
ladies and
so. I
gentlemen.
actually made this confusing. It's really more extratropical versus sub. Extratropical is cold core, warm core is tropical, and you can have
you tried to
subtropical,
trick us.
which can be either or, but it has to have subtropical. It normally has a frontal boundary associated with it.
These are
Okay, so this actually was a crazy question. This is specific to Hurricane Ian in 2022. I thought this was literally insane. It was actually on the USGS's website. Okay, so because of big storms, right? You know, sometimes you can have, you hear the crazy stories of like some animal that's never been seen before, you know, in Nebraska, like from Florida, you know, whatever, because things move, you know, and you have a storm. Okay, so how many invasive species have spread to locations in other parts of the country following Hurricane Ian? That's a big storm that made landfall in Southwest Florida. I'm going to give you A, B, C, or D.
Oh, okay.
2, 47, 63, or 212.
I'm going to do C for Carlene.
I'm gonna do D.
C for Carlene. Yay! But I was like 63 invasive species?
That's a lot.
Well, I aimed high because I was like, all right, I just feel like it's, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was it, you know. See, these are random, but that's why I was like, these are interesting. All right, I hope you guys know this one. If not, I'm going to kick you under the
Is this our
table,
last
Nick.
one
Just
right
kidding.
here?
No, it's not your last one.
Okay.
Are you wanting me to wrap
No,
up?
no.
Because
I didn't
Okay.
know. I didn't know. I was trying to tally up, so.
Based on when and where a hurricane makes landfall, they can cause water to recede and temporarily leave a beach bare with no water. True or false?
You say that one more time?
So a hurricane,
Okay.
depending on where and when it makes landfall.
'Kay.
So the wind is like high tide, low tide, you know, whatever. It can sometimes cause the water from the beach to recede and temporarily leave beaches bare from any water.
From any water?
I mean, near the coast. Like, obviously, you're not on the coast in Charleston. You can't see any water. But it's, like, very, very, very significant. What would look like significant low tide.
I'm gonna say true.
I'm going to say true as well.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's called reverse storm surge.
I've
Yeah.
heard of that term.
Okay, that's boring. Okay, all right, we're moving on to the next one.
It's not boring.
Oh, no, it was
I
a
should've-
different. It was no, it was
finger.
no,
I
it
had
was
to
a
think
different
about
one.
it.
No, the next question.
The next question, I skipped it because it was
okay.
boring. Okay, this is a little bit more data.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
At what wind speed does a storm become a hurricane? 60 miles per hour, 100 miles per hour, 75 miles per hour.
75.
I'm gonna roll with 75.
Yeah, it is. Well, okay, so
You
it's,
sound so confident.
so it's technically 74, but because of the fact that the others were rounded, I was like, that's going to be so obvious if I have 74. But yeah, it's 74 miles an hour. Oh, God bless.
Look at us go.
Okay,
I'm proud of you guys. Okay. All right. Well, I don't really want you guys to have
Our
to do that one.
Carolina heritage is not gone to
a
waste.
well, that was very Florida specific.
I'm over
Okay,
here.
here's one. How strong do winds need to be considered a Category 5 hurricane?
Okay.
160 miles an hour, 157 miles an hour, or 154 miles an hour?
C for Carlene.
Well, wait, what was that, 154?
Yeah.
All right, what's your guess?
B.
157?
Yeah.
You're right.
Is it really?
Yeah. Okay.
Hurricane expert
This is
over
an
here.
open-ended question because you better know this answer.
Oh, gosh.
What dates are hurricane season from?
June 1st to November 30th.
Bada bing, bada boom.
I didn't even get a chance to answer that question.
Sorry.
I didn't get a chance, so
Okay.
that didn't count. But this is what.
All right, well then I'll give you this one.
Okay,
then.
okay.
In an average year, how many hurricanes form in the Atlantic Basin? 12, 7, 3.
Oof. She gave you a tough one.
7.
Good job.
Boom! Boom! Boom!
All right.
Boom!
Now this I think might be a tricky one, since none of us were alive in one of these time periods.
Okay.
What is the deadliest hurricane on record in the United States?
Oh.
Hurricane Maria, Hurricane Katrina, or the Galveston hurricane of 1900?
The Galveston hurricane of 1900.
What's your answer?
I'll go with that too.
That's the correct answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Though I actually did a big
I feel like
project on that in school.
I feel like I heard about that. Look.
These are like the kind of crazy classes that are so fun but also so interesting you get to take when you're a meteorology major. Is I literally had a class that was hurricanes of the North Atlantic.
Wow.
Yeah.
But so like we wanted to do this quiz, yes, because it's interactive and fun, but we learn new things.
Yeah.
And look, that's the point of the special, right?
Yes.
So again, I want to remind folks the Hurricane IQ special, Weather Impact special is happening tonight at 8. You can watch it on air. You can watch it streaming.
Right
It's
here.
important. Right here.
You should have us on anyway, but just
leave your
keep
TV on. Just leave your TV
Yeah.
on. You
leave it on.
learn new things, how to prepare for hurricanes.
I mean, my dog watches WCNC Plus all day.
Mine does too.
Yeah, Roger loves WCNC Plus.
So does Turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense since they're best friends.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I want to do one more just because I think I was actually surprised by this answer. One more. All right.
That's not
Which
funny.
state has never experienced a hurricane landfall? In recorded history, of course.
Oh.
Maine, Massachusetts, or Virginia?
I'm gonna say Virginia because I feel like it always skips Virginia. It hits the North Carolina coast. It gets close to Virginia. I feel like it hits the North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, Georgia coast, and then it will go up. And I guess if it goes up, is it a nor'easter if it goes up? I don't know.
That's different.
Is that different? Okay, all right. I thought I knew
I'll
something.
go with Maine.
It's Virginia.
Is it Virginia?
Yeah, I was surprised. Okay, but I have one more because this one was good too.
Okay.
Okay. So since 1950, Florida, no surprise, has seen the most hurricane landfalls of any other state. Okay, what is number 2? Texas, North Carolina, Louisiana.
I'm gonna say Louisiana.
My gut was telling me.
Watch it beat North Carolina.
I was gonna say North Carolina, but then Texas is all. They all.
Yeah,
I'll go with North Carolina. I'll root for the home team.
Say Louisiana.
Sturdivant wins this one. It's
Oh!
Louisiana.
hurricane expert Nick Sturtevant.
He has come back from behind.
You can catch me at 8 p.m. Hurricane Nick No, I'm joking, y'all. It's Hurricane IQ Weather Impact Special. Before we let Brittany leave, do you have the forecast?
I do have a forecast.
Okay, all right. I was like, let me not.
I guess I didn't tell you what computer I was on, but I'm on weather too.
Okay. I got you.
So we've already established the fact that it was humid today.
Yes.
Nick has talked about that about 1,000 times with
At
his
exhaustion,
Yes. Tomorrow, we're going to be tracking that low that was just off the coast that had that low end chance of becoming subtropical. Essentially, what it means for us is a rainy start to the day, cloudy skies for the second half of the afternoon. But eventually this weekend, we're going to be looking at potentially and very likely our first 90-degree day of the year. Now, if you're wondering if that's late, it is. The average is around May 20th. Some years it happens in March. Some years it happens in April. One year, the latest ever, it was in July. So we're a little late, but once it's hot and humid every single day, you'll be wishing that it's been in the 80s. Here's the hour-by-hour forecast for tomorrow, again, with that chance for rain mainly in the morning. Because of this, temperatures will be cooler tomorrow, looking at the upper 70s. Here's that low that's going to bring us some rain. You can, of course, see it tracking there across other parts of the south and east. A little bit closer to home, you can see some cloud cover again associated with it. But mainly just some heavy rain down in southern South Carolina and into Georgia. Now, I do think that this could cause a few brief showers tonight, mainly in our southern communities, but you can see as the low moves northward, that brings a much, much higher chance of rain. So here we go. Here's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Again, a few sprinkles possible. Here's the light rain heading out the door tomorrow morning. I do not think it'll be a lot of heavy rain for the early morning commute, but it will get heavier throughout the morning. So by 10, 11, even 12 o'clock, we'll see some of those pockets of heavier rain, but it's out of here pretty quickly by Thursday night with just a brief shower potential on Friday. Now, I do think we could see a few isolated storms on Friday. Right now, a little bit too early to know if those could become severe, but certainly some strong storms could be possible. I'll remind folks that there's very specific criteria for severe weather. So similar to what we had on Sunday with that one rogue isolated storm in Charlotte, it was technically a strong storm with winds below 60 miles an hour, but hey, it still had some pea-sized hail. So we were still tracking it live for you right here on WCNC Plus. Dew points the next 7 days. Nick, I had to throw these in for you because unfortunately we're not seeing a big drop, so your throat's going to be a little probably for a few more days. Okay. I will remind people that this time of year, dew points mostly in the 60s. Yes, that's humid, but by July and August, we will be wishing for dew points in the 60s once we get into the 70s. So here's that 7-day forecast. Again, tomorrow, upper 70s, rain off and on for the majority of the first half of the day. Early afternoon, then we're clear. There's that isolated storm potential on Friday. And I do think Friday, Saturday, and again, probably on Monday, we'll have multiple opportunities to get to 90 degrees. I will also give the Ascent a shout out. They have a home match on Sunday, and our very own Larry Sprinkle is being honored at halftime. So if you love soccer and you love women's soccer specifically.
You love Larry.
Yeah. I didn't even include that because who doesn't?
We love Larry.
Some of our team members as well will be there to support him. So if you're there, come out, say hello. If you're not having any Sunday plans, come out and support Mr. Sprinkle.
Yeah.
The one and the only.
Their playoff game, too. It's a playoff game. Did you?
I think so,
yeah. It's their first. Because, they're still in their inaugural season. So shout out to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had them on. So that's the only reason why.
They were
I'm like, wow. Hurricane expert, Carolina. Said expert.
They were on. They were lovely. They are going to do fantastic on Sunday. First playoff home game. Mm-hmm. Larry Sprinkle's going to be there.
Yeah. Are you going?
Now you gotta go.
Now I gotta go. I was thinking about it because I'm trying to figure out what I want to do this weekend. So I haven't figured out what I want to do this week. Yeah. I definitely want to go.
If there are no storms, I might try to sneak out for a little bit on the old dinner break, but I'll have to be back if there's some storms. I know Sweet Carlene will be out of town, but
yes,
we'll give Larry a hug for you.
Thank you.
That is the fabulous, talented, outside of myself, hurricane expert, Beauty Rollins, Brittany Van Voorhees, with a breakdown of the special. Again, is happening on TV, on air, but here on WCNC Plus.
There it is.
Tonight at 8 o'clock, Hurricane IQ Weather Impact Special. Make sure you tune in and see.
Tell everybody.
And see everything that it has to offer, how to be better prepared, and just some great information you should know.
And if you watch it, you'll be closer to knowing as much as Nick Sturtevant.
As
we'll
proven.
Raise your hurricane IQ.
Yeah.
Oh, Brittany, we love you. Thank you for stopping by. I'll see you later. All right. Yeah. Again, you want to make sure you tune into that special. It's very informative. I learn a lot from my weather impact team. I get really, really smart when they come into the studio, and that's why I'm able to beat Carlene in the quiz.
Oh my gosh, you didn't beat me that bad. You
I
got the last question right, and then you're like, well, I beat Carlene.
I'm a bad winner. Shouldn't let me win. All right. Okay. All right. So where we want to go now? Where do we want to go now?
Let's go in the DOT interview you did.
Okay. So speaking of a hurricane special, so earlier this week I got a chance to speak with NCDOT about I-40. Helene, I mean, it caused a ton of damage, right? Mm-hmm. But I-40 saw a big brunt of that damage. And right now they have a lot of work on their plate, NCDOT, and working with Tennessee Department of Transportation to get I-40 fully reopened. It's partially open, but fully reopened. But we also got a chance to talk about innovations that came from this storm and some of the lessons NCDOT learned from this. Also, how they plan to be better prepared for the next potential big storm. So let's take a listen into that interview. All right, David, we'll start here, man. It has been, I can't even imagine how busy it's been for you guys. And a lot of the conversation has been around I-40. Can you give me an update? Where do things stand when it comes to I-40, specifically, obviously, in Western North Carolina?
Yeah, Nick, thank you very much for the opportunity to join you and your crew right here. Yes, I-40 is by far the most visible and the most impactful to folks all across the entire country when it comes to road damage due to Hurricane Helene. It is an interstate, so it is not only used by folks who live in the area on both sides of the state line, be it in Tennessee or North Carolina. It carries a tremendous amount of commercial traffic. So when it was closed from late September through the 1st of March, folks were having to take the long way. Now, that long way could have been I-26 or I-81 or even further east, I-77, different ways to get around that closure. We have seen folks go through in the one-lane pattern recently. That some have gone through quickly, some have incurred what most folks do, a little bit of congestion. Remember, it's open, but it's not up to typical interstate standards. It's one lane in each direction, and each of those lanes are very narrow, and there's a 9-inch curb separating each lane. And then to the south, where all the damage was in the river, is still a very, very active work zone. So in terms of what's happening now, the contractor is in the area building the causeway in the riverbed. Later this year, hopefully actual construction operations should begin. And then in terms of a timeline, we're looking for a good 3 years before it gets back to full interstate standards. So in that time, crews will be rebuilding everything that was damaged for 4 miles. It's a lot different of construction than you'd find in a major city or on flat land where the elevation changes are minimal. There's a lot of difference in elevation between the roadbed and the riverbed. I mean, it could be 50, 60, 90, 100 feet. And then when you widen that out, that's a lot of rebuilding that has to be done.
And I didn't send this your way. It just made me think of this because my family and I went on vacation to Asheville last summer, right before Helene hit. Mm-hmm. And I just remember every time I drive on I-40 through that part, it's a little scary for me. But what I wanted to ask, because it's so busy there in the past, does that, I guess, impede the work in progress? I know a lot of folks go up there to different parts of Western North Carolina. Does that hinder anything at all with what crews are doing?
Not necessarily. We're talking I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge. So your destination has to be beyond Asheville, closer toward Knoxville, to get into that one-lane pattern. And, for the last few months, and certainly since the weather has turned nice, we are seeing an influx of people coming in to visit Western North Carolina. And folks who live here certainly appreciate those. Now, once again, as we're talking about roadways, it's I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge that is down to one lane. Getting here from Charlotte, come on, you got the two options, I-40 or I-26.
Look, there are plenty of roads outside of I-40. I know I-40 is the big one, right? But, as I mentioned earlier, we cover, and I'm not even going to commit this to memory, but Caldwell, Yancey, Avery, just a few of the counties that we cover in the mountain areas. What is the work like there on those private roads and bridges? And is it as much of an uphill climb as maybe I-40 is?
Okay, did you ask specifically about private roads, as in roads belonging to either companies or municipalities or groups of people, or you said private, so individual people?
I'm sorry, let me not say private. Let me say the roads
Okay,
that the state manages. I'm sorry. Let
there
me
we go.
clarify that. Let me clarify that. The roads that the state manages. I always I get caught up in saying that, but yes, the roads that you guys specifically
Mhm.
manage.
Yes, so there is still a lot of recovery happening in all the counties. You had mentioned Yancey County and Avery County. Yes, the reconstruction continues. Now, we attacked this hurricane in three different phases. Three different phases. First of all, you have emergency, which is just getting to people, cutting through the trees, clearing stuff out of the road, being able to get people and emergency services to where they need to go. So those happened in the first few weeks, reconnecting people today so they could get to the major roads, so they could get to wherever they had to be in an emergency, or to get emergency crews and supplies in. Those tasks were accomplished in the first few weeks. Once that access was established, NCDOT and our contractors concentrated on building temporary access. All right. So that's taking a single lane dirt road that's real narrow, real curvy, real bumpy, widening that out to 2 lanes, smoothing it, maybe even adding an asphalt top. And that's where we are in a lot of places across Yancey County or Avery County on NCDOT maintained roads, certainly on the highways. The next major phase, which is what we're in right now as we lead into the long term and the construction season, is rebuilding the permanent repairs. So in a lot of places, there are temporary bridges, in which case, a car can go across, a small truck can go across. Right next to it, the permanent bridge is going in. And of course, the permanent repairs take much longer to build and construct.
One good point when we were going back and forth email, you brought it was innovation out of this. I didn't even think
Yeah.
about that. We always think about the recovery, but the innovation. Can you talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. In a single sentence, NCDOT is using old rail cars as bridges.
Really?
Yes.
Can you
Yeah.
explain it?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot of different places that are on private land, whether it's a golf course or somebody's nice big fancy facility, or even in recreational areas where you want a bridge that isn't necessarily used for a large vehicle, but you still need a bridge, maybe to drive a golf cart or an ATV. Sometimes those bridges are old flatbed rail cars. So somebody at NCDOT had come up with the idea, hey, do you think that could work for cars? Well, it turns out it can. So there is a contractor in Burke County who has worked with NCDOT to provide the flatbed cars, and NCDOT crews and contractors have gone through the process of turning them into bridges. And that includes simple steps as welding on guardrail, or in some cases, welding a couple of the cars together. Add the guardrail, add the asphalt surface, and voila, in a day or two, there's a brand new bridge reconnecting a community to a major road or a road that was bigger. And so that is providing them with safe, secure access that didn't exist immediately after the storm.
Little is that? I mean, God, I mean, again, we don't, you just think about the destruction and the aftermath, but you don't really think about what I hate to say it like this, but the good that comes from this.
Well, as you know, Western North Carolina residents going back for generations are hardy, hardworking folks who have to think of creative and different ways to solve problems. That's what the mountain naturally gives us. So you bring that up to today, and it's not like it was, of course, but hey, it's just another example of folks thinking in a different way, an untraditional way to solve problems. One of the benefits of these temporary rail car bridges is that once the permanent bridge is in, NCDOT still owns that temporary bridge. So later this summer, next summer, 5 summers from now, when the next major hurricane comes in, NCDOT will be in position to install those temporary bridges, whether it's here in the mountains that they're needed, in the Piedmont, in Charlotte, anywhere out on the coast. We will have more than 40 of those ready to be installed.
Speaking of that, it's hard to believe that it's been a year almost since Helene. Like we're approaching that 1 year. Oh man, it still doesn't feel real. But how do you prepare for potentially the next storm, if there is a next storm? Like what are there any sort of protocols, plans in place? I guess to help.
Well, that question brings up two different answers, and I'll start with the shorter one first. And that is, when you go back to this storm, one of the things that could not be planned for was the slicing, the splicing, the absolute disconnection of basic services. Not being able to make a cell phone call for a week, not being able to have internet for a week or two. And that's in the major metropolitan areas of Western North Carolina. I mean, it's obviously not major metropolitan compared to Charlotte or anything, but in the cities, no communication. So our engineers had trouble communicating lots of times. I mean, there was one engineer who had a spot on I-40 that he could get a strong-ish cell phone signal, and that's where he conducted his meetings. And so what we have learned is, hey, next time for the next storm, we're going to have to think about satellite technology to be able to communicate with one another, let alone to be able to communicate with our loved ones or to help others in our community communicate with their loved ones or get the emergency services that they needed. So that's one way to answer that. And then the other way to answer, hey, for next time, is as we go back and rebuild the bridges, rebuild the roads, there's a lot of question about resiliency. And yes, all of the repairs that we're making will have resiliency. But remember, there's a difference between resiliency and total defense. I mean, in no way, shape, or form can or even does NCDOT want to rebuild for the next Helene. A Helene comes around, what, once every 1,000 years, 2,000 years? It's literally impossible to rebuild for that. However, what we did notice really quickly was bridges and other structures that were built within the last 10, 15, 20 years. They survived at a much better rate than things that were built 20, 30, 40, 60 years ago. So as the standards for what everything is built at increases as time increases, the current standards now are much better than they were 5, 10, 15 years ago. So the new structures will be able to better withstand and better rebound from the next major storm that hits.
Well, I'll let you go. Is there one thing, one question that you get asked all the time that you know the answer to? You may not know the answer to, but that you continue to have to answer. You have to that comes up. What is that one thing when it comes to this recovery process?
The specific question varies, but it always includes one word: when. Of course, I was getting that question a lot even before the hurricane,
right.
But now it's a little bit different. If you'll allow me a little bit of time, what we have here in Western North Carolina now is a lot of the Tennessee state trees. Sorry, Vol fans. The orange cones. In addition to the Hurricane Helene repairs that we have to do, the State Transportation Improvement Program keeps going. So while you go and rebuild, you also have to build what was planned for before the hurricane came through. So your regular construction schedules are continuing in addition to Hurricane Helene. So as I drive an hour from Asheville to Bloom on an occasion, I'll come across 4, 6, 8 work zones. That's a lot of work zones. How many of them are Helene, which would not be in place right now if not for the hurricane? About half of them. How many of them would be in place because we're improving our state interstate system? About half of them. But when you stack all of those work zones on top of each other, it becomes tiring. It becomes burdensome. and it's just looming over everybody who lives here. And at some point in time, everybody has some sort of breakdown or absolute frustration of, I'm tired of this. So when, and then fill in the blank. And the answer is, we're working our tails off to get it done as soon as possible, as safely as possible, for the benefit of everybody who lives here, everybody who works here, and for folks who want to come visit us.
Man, thank you for your time.
All right, that was David Uchiyama with NCDOT giving us an update on the progress NCDOT is making when it comes to the work and the repairs on I-40. Not only that, but what's next as far as how they are better preparing for storms like Helene, also some of the innovation to come out of the recovery efforts. All right, and you can catch that interview now. It should be on our YouTube page and also on our website. You can catch that interview in full and watch it in its entirety. All right, so we want to get to a story now that is obviously a national story, a story that is all over social media, all over pick a news outlet. We reported on this. It's a big talker. And we're talking about what has been dubbed and referred to by President Donald Trump as the big, beautiful bill. Now, it's a sweeping domestic policy package that the House passed recently, and it's being referred to, again, as the big, beautiful bill. I'm sure you heard this term before. All right, the bill includes a wide range of provisions, including extending Trump's 2017 tax cuts, eliminating taxes or taxes on tips and overtime, and raising the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. There is a lot of pushback because it's expected to cut programs such as, and social programs like Medicaid and SNAP. So a lot of folks are upset. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of information out there about this bill and a lot of talk. And a lot of that information is coming from social media. So we wanted to bring in Meg Bragg, who is verifying. I could have given you more of a heads up.
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm here. I'm ready.
But again, there's a lot of talk about this bill.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anytime I feel like there's something that's, big and beautiful. And I just love the name of this bill, actually. But yeah, when there's this big legislation, we're going to hear lots and lots of things about it, especially a lot of rumors. And of course, I'm in the business of rumors. And so we've been sifting through some of the rumors on social media that we've been seeing.
Misinformation. A lot of misinformation.
Yes, lots and lots of misinformation on this. One that we keep seeing, and we actually got a few emails about this as well, is they're claiming that this act contains a provision that does allow the U.S. president to delay or cancel elections. So, we wanted to look into that a little bit more. Now, this bill is over 1,000 pages. There's a lot of pages in this bill. So what we did was we kind of went through the bill ourselves, and we spoke with Catawba College professor. He's a political science professor, Michael Bitzer. We use him a lot. He's great. But I really want to show you, Carlene, if you pull up this bill right now, what we did first was we went to the table of contents, and we really searched for anything that had to do with elections, delay or cancel. And so we went through this whole thing. You can see this is what we do at Verify. It keeps going and going, and there's a lot in this bill. But yeah, we couldn't find anything in the table of contents about elections at all. I even did a search, searching several different words throughout the bill, like elections, like president, and we didn't find anything in the bill that said anything about elections.
Still going.
Yeah, it's still going. I know. You could go for hours, yes. Carlene. There's nothing about election. There's nothing about president power. There's nothing about delay or cancel of elections. So we couldn't find anything in the bill. We also talked to Michael Bitzer about this. He also verified to us, yes, there's not anything in the bill about elections. So, or the president being allowed to control elections, cancel elections, anything like that. So we can verify that that is false. That's a false claim. Now, what we can verify, though, is that there's another bill right now that has passed the House. It's in the Senate, kind of like this bill, called the SAVE Act, and that does address elections. Now, what it addresses isn't presidential power over elections. It's really about mail-in ballots having to be mailed in on the same day that polls do close. So there's not that grace period. And it also talks about getting rid of same-day registration. So you can go in and register to vote and then vote the same day. But once again, it has nothing about presidential power or the president being able to cancel elections or anything like that.
Like, just in our like day and age, like, I mean, you went through this a lot covering the election as far as Verify.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to give folks just an idea of what the Verify team here, like, what you guys do. Like, does this make it complicated? It makes your job complicated when you get these rumors, it's misinformation, and then you have to sift through a lot. I mean, it's a part of the gig, right? But
honestly, I think it's so fun.
Okay.
I have the best time. I was actually talking to our job shadow today, and I said one of my favorite parts of this is researching. I think it's so interesting.
It's important, too.
It's important, and it's also important for people to know how to use these tools. You can look at the summary of the bill on Congress. You can also, do a search, put in elections. I think it's like Control-Alt something. S, to find specific words, and it'll show you each word, and you can look up, okay, if there's an election word, what is this saying?
You can use AI, too.
You can use AI. You can put the bill through AI. It'll spit out, now, it's going to say a lot. So,
right.
But yeah, there are things that you can do. So if you do see stuff like this on social media, you're not sure, before you retweet or re-exit, I don't know what we're saying now, you can look and see for yourself. You don't, I think people jump quickly because they see something like this and they're like, oh my gosh, the president can cancel elections. But it's not necessarily. You got to take a step back, stop, and really do your own research if that's something that you want to do.
You guys do incredible work at Verify, a lot of work at Verify. I mean, you guys get a lot of, stuff come in. What's the easiest way? I know we put it out there, verify at WCNC.com, but like, honestly, what's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
Verify at WCNC.com. I think that's the best way. We monitor that email all day, every day, and we love hearing from everyone. So, send them on in.
I haven't said this in a while.
I know. Say it, Nick. I love when you say this.
It's a bad line.
Let's hear it.
I always get a little smarter every time, just a little bit.
A teeny bit,
teeny bit. When Meg comes through and helps us break down some of these, you talk about one big, beautiful bill. It can be complicated for a lot of people, and 1,000 pages go through, but good to verify certain aspects of it. And so thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping by.
You're welcome.
I know where your desk is.
You sure do. You sure do.
All right, Meg Bragg, thank you. Thank you for your time. Again, we've been reporting on this piece of legislation for a while now, so it's always good to do the research and get that correct information out there for the folks and for you guys, honestly, because it's a lot to go through. Trust me, it's a lot to go through. All right, we want to stick with politics. We want to go now to come back here at home, right? Mecklenburg County, right? Because the budget. I want to make sure you get the latest information. So, all right, so listen up. If you live and listen in Mecklenburg County, your property taxes are set to go up. It comes after county leaders approved its new fiscal year budget last night, totaling $2.5 billion. That means a 0.96% property tax increase for a median household, which comes out to about $36 a year. All right, so the budget also puts a heavy emphasis on education. It gives CMS the requested $667 million it asked for, a $28 million increase over last year. And now the district says most of that funding will go towards raising teacher salaries, which has been a big concern, a big point of contention for years here in North Carolina. It would also spend more than $3 million to build 10 new pre-K classrooms. However, there has been some pushback. There has been some concerns about the budget. WCNC Charlotte's Julie Kay was in here yesterday on Live Impact News breaking down the budget.
It's a lot.
Right, it is a lot. It is a lot. And she did a great job. You can go back and watch that interview. But she broke down the budget. And there are some nonprofits that are, they're expressing their concerns. They say, hey, look, we are hurting right now. We're going to hurt because of this budget. Because of some of the spending cuts. What we normally get is not what we're going to get.
Not everybody could get everything they asked for.
Basically. And so Julie Kay got a chance to speak with a local nonprofit that is here in, obviously, Mecklenburg County. Let's take a listen into that interview.
I am the co-director of QC Family Tree.
So tell me about what you guys do, what kind of resources you offer, and who you guys are available to.
Sure. So we are a 20-year-old nonprofit organization located here in the Enderley Park community. The co-founders of this organization started out as young ministers out of Raleigh. We've since moved away from kind of the religious aspect of our work. And so now our mission is to cultivate community for the common good. We do that in a variety of ways. We do cultural organizing work, which includes arts and creativity and those things in our work. We do social justice education. We do community organizing and building. But the thing I think we'll discuss most today is our affordable housing efforts. So literally, affordable housing has always been a challenge in the Enderley Park community, and now expanded out to the west side. But neighbors would sort of be transient. They would leave, come back, move in, move out. But since gentrification has hit us so badly, the need for affordable housing is even more greater. And so what we look to our affordable housing to do is literally to prevent displacement among people who have been on the west side most of their lives. I'm not from Charlotte, but I have lived on the west side ever since I moved here in 2012. And even I was on the displacement list because of rising rental prices, home prices. So it's been really a challenge, but it's also really great to work in an organization that is not just saying, well, we're going to refer you somewhere else, that we're actually tackling it by providing the housing ourselves and not, doing it for a profit, doing it sheerly to be able to just provide the service for people.
And affordable housing is such a big struggle here in Charlotte across the board, but especially it's nice to be able to focus on one community and really get involved there. Of course, you can't do that without support from the community. So I found you guys after listening into that budget hearing for Mecklenburg County. Tell me what the status is of the support that y'all are receiving / looking to receive.
So as of right now, because this would have been last year would have been our first year of funding. However, due to just trying to get all of our paperwork and things together, we'll still get funded, but it's not from the fiscal year coming up. So essentially, if something doesn't happen within this next fiscal year, we'll be in a place of not being funded. What that looks like for us is, well, there are a couple of things. Let me just point this out. This is the important thing that people need to realize. So just from the county's perspective, we were going to receive about $25,000 in funding from the county. However, the county also supports the United Way for the United Neighbors grant as well, United Neighborhoods grant as well. Well, we got $25,000 from the United Way as well. Those funds are probably not going to be done again. So essentially, because of the cuts within the county, it doesn't really necessarily direct us. It may not directly impact you in just one way. It may impact you in several ways, ways that you didn't even realize. So essentially, QC Family Tree is in a position now to where we will have to really scramble at pretty much last minute to try to figure out what we're going to do. For our potentially $50,000 shortfall versus a $25,000 shortfall, if that makes sense.
It does. Can you clarify again? Sorry, I just want to make sure I get everything right. You said if something doesn't happen this year, then we'll be scrambling. What do you mean by this year?
Well, we will be scrambling because typically the United Neighborhoods grant in particular, like I said, with the county, that's a next year problem, but it's still, a problem. But with the United Neighborhoods grant, that's potentially on the chopping block, then, those grants typically come up like in June for the next year. That's right now. So that's another base of support that smaller organizations, or I shouldn't say smaller organizations, we've been around for a long time, but smaller budget organizations won't have access to those funds.
And that
potentially
is or is not funded through the county? Is that fully just United Way or is that through the county?
So the United Way funds the county for those grants. The county funds the United Way for those grants.
I understand.
And those grants are considered, I can't remember what they call it, but not to the county's core of services in the budget.
So this year you're worried about the United Way grants not being funded. Next year you were hoping to ask for more separate funding, and that's a separate issue, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So what does that look like in practice? Let's say like tonight they passed the budget and it does not include the United Way grants. What does that scrambling look like for you and your community?
What it looks like is that our neighbors who currently pay no more than 30% of their earnings, we will have to potentially go up on our rent and cause, a struggle. If we go up and our neighbors can't pay that, then, we may have to consume that cost somehow. We may have to go into our reserves, which we've been responsible. We have reserves. But a reserve doesn't last you for 5 or 6 years until the government can get their life right, So, we're in the process now of, moving towards asking people to give above and beyond what they usually give, tapping sources that we never tapped before. But the issue with that is everybody is doing the same thing because we're all in this unique crisis. So we're filling in the gaps in the best way we can. And I think, with the generosity of people, we'll be able to do that, and organizations will be able to do that. But it's certainly very stressful, and our hearts break every day for the decisions we may have to make because of this. And I think that, sometimes as a nonprofit organization, the perception is that you solely count on public money. We definitely do not count on public money, but certainly when money is cut off rather quickly the way it has been, it impacts the people who we're trying to serve. And those people are people who the county is supposed to serve and the United Way is supposed to serve. We're the conduit for those things. So I hope I'm not over talking the point, but it is really, really, really important that people realize that, we're not an irresponsible organization. None of this money that would be cut would go to me or my salary or operations of our organization. The operations of our organizations in terms of salary. It's going towards people who make less than 50% AMI, which is very hard to find.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. That was an interview that you can catch right now on our website. Is with nonprofit talking about the impacts of the Met County budget. All right, we want to get now to a press conference that's happening live in Catawba County. This is after that mass shooting there in the area Sunday morning, early Sunday morning. We've been getting updates all week. Latest update that a suspect gets a $200,000 bond in this case. But again, that press conference is underway. Let's take a listen to it.
You guys good? Okay, I'll bring him in.
All right, so that press conference is about to start, but I just want to fill you in. So Garen Nathaniel Killian is the man charged in connection with the mass shooting at a party in Catawba County last weekend. He made his first appearance in court this morning. Killian, who was charged with attempted first-degree murder, was given a $200,000 bond and placed under electronic monitoring. Again, you see it right there. Officials, authorities there for the Catawba County Sheriff's Office at the podium. Let's take a listen to that.
Good afternoon. I'm Catawba County Sheriff Don Brown. Before Garen Killian's bond hearing today, I had a message to share with you about my gratitude for what all these law enforcement agencies are doing to help us investigate this tragic case. But now, I want to say that I am outraged. The first suspect we arrested in connection with this mass shooting was given a $200,000 bond. 3 days ago, I said at the press briefing that I'm sorry, that my responsibility as sheriff is to protect the lives and the property of the citizens of Catawba County. Now I stand before you today and tell you how difficult that is. As the sheriff of Catawba County, how can I, better yet, how can we, all law enforcement, protect the lives and property of our citizens when someone already charged with 7 counts of attempted murder, 3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, get out of jail on bond? I believe he should have never been back on the street after Hickory Police Department charged him with those crimes. He bonded out of jail on April 14th. 48 days later, all of our lives changed. This is frustrating. It's infuriating. But despite my disappointment about this bond, this investigation continues. And I want our great community to know that to this hour, there have been 12 law enforcement agencies working hand in hand, pursuing leads and developing suspects. They are interviewing witnesses, collecting evidence, and processing an extensive crime scene. They have worked continuously since the call came in Sunday morning. The investigation thus far has spanned over 6 counties. There are facets of the investigation that are time-sensitive and fast-paced, and there are others, such as crime scene processing, which are slow and methodical so that we make sure that we get it right. The complete disregard for life by the individuals involved affects not only the victims and the people directly involved, it affects people throughout our community and well beyond that. This is evident by the calls, the posts on social media, and the conversations I've had with our citizens. But what I already know, but has been repeatedly confirmed, is that our community is amazing. The overwhelming support that we as law enforcement have received is incredible. For that, I thank our community. In closing, I commit to you, our citizens, that the law enforcement team assembled in this case will continue to work aggressively and continuously until everyone, and I mean everyone, responsible for these senseless crimes that shook our community to the core are arrested, charged, and prosecuted. Chief Bear.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. My name is Reed Bear, and I am the City of Hickory Police Chief. I'm going to echo some of what Sheriff Brown just said. It is beyond frustrating that someone with pending charges for multiple counts of attempted murder is out in the community in the first place. It is unimaginable that this same person can then be charged with additional charges from a separate incident to include attempted murder and could be out in our community tonight. We are regularly asked by our community members, why should they come forward with information about crimes being committed if the person is just going to be back in the neighborhood? And in cases like this one, it leaves me with no answer for them. Despite that, the Hickory Police Department from the beginning has worked with the Sheriff's Office and our federal and state partners. We will continue to work alongside the Catawba County Sheriff's Office and our local, state, and federal partners to bring all the individuals responsible for this heinous act to justice. We are very lucky that we have the close partnerships we do in Catawba County. And with the community's help, it will be these partnerships that lead to the successful outcome of this investigation. I'm going to turn it over now to Major Aaron Turk.
Thank you, Chief Bear. Thank you all in the media for coming. I'm going to give you an update on our investigation at present and hopefully some forecast on where it's going. We'll certainly take questions at the end. If I don't get something that you're hoping to hear, please ask. As you already know, we've made an arrest in the case. You've heard a lot about Garrett Killian. That arrest is for attempted first-degree murder. We're also now announcing that we have a charge of attempted first-degree murder on Tolan Huff. Huff is not in custody. We're looking for Mr. Huff, asking for the public's assistance in finding Mr. Huff, and we're asking the media to broadcast Huff's image and the outstanding charge so that he can be located. I'd be happy to.
Sorry for interrupting.
That's a good thing. So everybody get what they need? Okay. Also, we're going to announce today charges that are filed by North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division. They are going to offer specifics on those charges. Concerning the status of the investigation, as you've heard, it's a mass shooting. Been over 80 shots fired at that location. The FBI is still on the crime scene, working bullet trajectory. It's, in my experience, one of the most complex, probably the most complex shooting investigation I've ever seen or been any part of. And it's vital that we understand where every shot was fired from, if that's possible, and what the intended target of that shooter was, if possible, and then who was the actual target or the recipient of that gunfire, person to person. As we establish that and gather competent evidence, we are in near constant consultation with our district attorney's office about charges. And we're filing charges that we feel like at this point are substantive and that our district attorney's office can take to court immediately and support by way of facts. Again, the FBI is still working on bullet trajectory at the crime scene. I don't know when they're going to be finished. I understand that work, again, is ongoing. We're going to travel out there and get an update on that here in the coming days. We do expect additional charges in this case, multiple persons, multiple charges. The gentleman that have been charged and Mr. King that's been arrested will also be facing additional charges. One last thing, and then I'll eventually take your questions at the end. As you know, there's been a homicide in this mass violence event. We are looking at that homicide along with all of the other injured parties. We've received questions, and they're understandable questions, about why we have not charged someone in the homicide yet. Again, we have to be able to account for every shot, the shooter, and the intended recipients and the actual recipients of those shots before we can discern who might be responsible for the homicide in this situation. I'll be back later for your questions. Special Agent Porter.
Good afternoon. Special Agent in Charge Porter with North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement. We are announcing today that arrest warrants have been obtained for 2 individuals. They are the individuals believed to be responsible for organizing and hosting the party. The first one is for Mr. Raekwon Craig. He's been charged with 3 counts of aiding and abetting underage possession of alcohol.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay. There you go. Sorry.
You see that one? And the other arrest warrant, similar for Mr. Patrick Tolbert, same 3 charges of aiding and abetting.
We don't have that.
Don't have the second,
We
okay.
don't have that picture available.
That's right. We can get that to you. But it's the same charge as 3 counts of aiding and abetting underage possession of alcohol by a person over the age of 21. I'll keep my comments brief, and then I can answer any questions at the end.
Good afternoon. My name is James Barnacle. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation here in North Carolina. First, the law enforcement coordination on this investigation has been nothing short of astounding. I want to thank our partners at Catawba County Sheriff's Office and Hickory Police Department and the State Bureau of Investigation and Alcohol Enforcement, along as many other law enforcement agencies that have stepped in and helped on this investigation. The partners here are partners for the long haul. We are not in it for just this situation. We are in to work together to address crime across this country. When we got the call from Catawba County, we surged resources to assist the county with the evidence response team, investigators, agents, intelligence analysts, and scientists. Once the news of this tragic situation was relayed to the director of the FBI, Director Kash Patel, he called me Sunday and asked if the FBI or the local and state authorities needed additional resources. He surged lab personnel from Quantico down here to do a trajectory analysis of the crime scene. Director Patel also reiterated the FBI's top priority is to crush violent crime in the United States, and we will work on that here in North Carolina. The FBI has been working on the Walnut Acres road scene. We expect to wrap up our work this afternoon or evening. What we have been primarily working on is, as you have heard, we are processing evidence and we are looking for the trajectory of rounds. Let me add some perspective of why we have been there for 4 days. You've already heard at least 80 bullets were fired. Our teams are working to trace the trajectory of every single round. Once someone makes the choice to pull the trigger of a weapon, the bullet does not care where it goes. Our job is to trace where it came from and where it stopped. The FBI is uniquely qualified for this crucially important task of gathering evidence. In this case, sadly, gunfire hit victims. Other bullets went into the house, through fences, skipped off concrete, hit vehicles, and even burrowed into the ground. I was just out at the scene a little while ago this morning, late this morning, and our evidence response team has put lasers and scopes and trajectory. There's a lot of science behind it, but we will account for the vast majority of the rounds, including the round itself and fragments. We have recovered rounds from the scene. Finally, to the District Attorney's Office, the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina, to the citizens here in North Carolina, people will be held accountable for these heinous crimes. The FBI will work with our partners. We will continue to partner to address the violent crime here in the state of North Carolina. I will now turn this over to the State Bureau of Investigation.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Laws. I'm a special agent in charge with the State Bureau of Investigation in the Northwestern District. As you know, the SBI was requested by the Sheriff's Office on Sunday, and since Sunday and that day forward, there have been agents on the ground all across Western North Carolina from 4 different districts and multiple counties, from crime scene agents to investigators to other individuals with specialized skill sets that have assisted in this investigation and will continue. All resources at the disposal of the SBI and the state of North Carolina will be available here for this investigation, and we will be here until the end. Director Hawley's here and has assured us that we have whatever we need to assist our local partners, whether it's Hickory, Catawba County, any of the federal agencies, to make sure that the people are held accountable for these crimes that they have committed. These crimes are heinous, and having grown up in this community, are unbelievable. I agree with the chief and the sheriff that it's hard for us to go out, spend countless hours around the clock, arrest these people, and then they're back in the community. But rest assured, the SBI and all of these partners that you see up here will not stop until those are held accountable, are arrested. Thank you.
All right, I'll take your questions. Before we begin that, if you have a question for a specific agency other than the Sheriff's Office, we can get another of the representatives up here, but I'll start. Dave Fairdy.
Aaron, with the help from the FBI and them doing all the analysis out there, do you have a better picture on how many different weapons and people might have been involved in this gunfire now?
That picture is becoming more clear. Again, you've heard a lot about the trajectory work by the FBI. That's been invaluable. We understand there's multiple shooters. Again, you've heard multiple rounds. The last count I was given was 80, at least, that have been confirmed. We can tell you now that the shooting began from a neighboring yard that was an elevated position from the house where the crime scene is now being investigated. In response to that initial gunfire, other gunfire erupted from around the home itself and out into the front yard and by the roadway there on Walnut Acres Drive. We're trying to determine if that gunfire was initiated and then second gunfire was directly responsive, or if other shootings were taking place during that time. That's going to take us a while to discern, but as you've heard, we're going to find those answers and bring those people to justice.
Quick follow on that. So up on that hillside, at least one person was shooting down. Do you know how many people were up on that hillside shooting down at the party goers?
The evidence shows there were multiple people on that. Like you're referring to it as a hillside. We don't have an exact count to offer as I stand here, but more than one.
And the types of weapons, have you figured that out?
We're not releasing that right now. Yes, ma'am.
Do we know whether Sean Hood, the homicide victim, was the intended target?
We do not know if he was the primary target or perhaps even a sole target. He certainly was victimized in this, and certainly him and his family have suffered the most traumatic victimization from this. He certainly was a target, and again, as I talk about intended victims or intended recipients of gunfire than the actual recipients. We're working to discern if Mr. Hood was an intended target or just a victim that suffered his death during that tragedy. Yes, ma'am.
And where do you place Killian in all of this? As far as, was he in the yard? Was he, as far as for the attempted?
Garen Killian. Garen Killian, our evidence is telling us, is among the persons responsible for the Hillside shooting. We are looking at him, Mr. Huff, and others for that seemingly uninitiated and unprovoked attack. We're not going to offer specifics about suspects' involvement and by way of direct action at this time. I can tell you, though, from my understanding, that Mr. Killian, Garen Killian, and Tolan Huff are at least two of the defendants that have been charged in the City of Hickory shooting there at the Closed Party City. And so they're involved in that, and then now they're involved in this. Yes, ma'am.
Was that, so do you believe that that April shooting was connected?
We're not seeing any evidence right now of a direct connection, but we certainly hadn't ruled that out. Dave?
So the killing guy and the other guy that you have the picture up with the charges, the single charge
Right.
for the attempted. Do you think that those two, have you found that they were at the party prior to this, something might have happened, they left and then came back?
We're hearing that, and we're trying to discern their exact movements and timeline. I can't offer articulate information on that as I stand here right now. I want to make sure that I get everybody. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Can you tell us anything about a motive or why the shooting took place yet?
We're certainly investigating and trying to discern the motive. We can tell you that some of these people are affiliated with gangs. They've made those admissions to us themselves. We do not know if this incident was a gang act in its entirety or that some of the people involved are affiliated in gangs. We're working that as a motive and then other possibilities. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any clarity around if either Huff or Killian were the initial shooters?
I can't answer that with exacting determination as I stand here, but they were on the hillside when the initiation of the shooting began. Yes, ma'am.
Were the majority of the people at the party over 21 or under 21? I don't know if that's a better question for ALE.
I'm going to let ALE address that. And any alcohol-related questions or party promotion questions will be alcohol law enforcement. He's over here. Sir, go ahead.
Would you mind repeating your question for me?
Were the majority of the people at the party over 21 or under 21?
Can't say what the majority were, but we know that there were numerous underage and several juveniles as well. Yes, ma'am.
Is Patrick Tolbert considered a resident of the 1125 Walnut Acres tribe?
That is one that I will defer to Major Turk in the Sheriff's Office for right now. Yes, sir.
Could you please tell us how many people were shot?
I will also defer that to Major Turk.
He answers the alcohol-related questions and the party promotion questions.
Yes, sir.
And on the party promotion end, what do we know about that party? Where was it promoted? Who was the target audience?
So it seems that those details are still coming in, but that a lot of this is shared on social media, and that these move around. And a reason that we try to address these is that they are a common cause for violence like this. Just in this year alone, since January, we've investigated 9 such events where an organizer or promoter has coordinated an illegal alcohol event. And in most of those, ALE agents have uncovered alcohol violations, but also other serious criminal activity like narcotics and firearms. So we're very happy to work with Sheriff here and all the other partners to hopefully be able to prevent some of these things. Yes, sir.
Do we believe that the homeowners, whoever own this property, received payment or compensation of some sort to host this party?
We're still working to figure that out right now. Yes, ma'am.
Those who were charged for this underage drinking, have they been arrested yet?
The 2 that I announced there, no, their arrest warrants are active, and we're seeking them at this time.
So as of right now, Killian's the only one arrested, right?
I'll let the major confirm that.
Did you believe anybody else was responsible for promotion, or do you think that the 2 that were arrested are the ones?
Charged.
Yeah.
We are certainly pursuing that to try to get anybody that is involved and responsible. Those 2 arrest warrants have been issued due to the facts that we believe allege their involvement in it.
Now, do you believe Mr. Hood was at all responsible for implementation?
Still working to figure that out, and I'll refer it back to Major Turk. Thank you.
Party promotion question, do people pay to get into the party?
We're trying to figure that out. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, who hadn't asked a question yet? Anybody that had got a yes, sir?
Could you tell us, Major, how many people were shot?
We have, I believe, 8 to 10 confirmed persons that suffered gunshots, and then others that were injured, perhaps they were fleeing or otherwise there during the gunfire, but not actually suffering gunshots. Yes, sir.
Are any of those injured still in the hospital currently?
I don't have that information as I'm up here right now. All right, that's going to be it for questions. Thank you.
I have one more question.
Do you guys need me to go back through any of the graphics? Because we did add that.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Okay, so you already have that. And then this is the suspect that we're looking for.
All right, we will cover all of this tonight, obviously, at 4, 5, and 6. I'm Colin Mayfield, joining the stream a little bit early. Nick Sturdivant getting things ready for the 4 o'clock with Jane Monreal. Of course, we'll get all that information, update you again. Our reporters are kind of scrambling, putting their pieces together, and we will have a live report for you on the news, our linear shows on WCNC. We do want to talk about the forecast because tonight is a big night for us here. We have our annual hurricane type of special. We're in hurricane season, and we know how important these type of records are, that we look at the statistics that our meteorologists go through, and then they create this original content for us that we will have for you at 8 tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about the weather, though, what it's about Wednesday, and then we'll toss to this now.
Well, good Wednesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm. We are starting out our Wednesday afternoon with pretty quiet conditions out there. Little sunshine, but you'll notice throughout the afternoon we'll start to see more and more cloud coverage start to move across the area. Not only will we have a cloudy afternoon, but you'll also notice that increase in humidity today. Once we're heading into the overnight hours tonight and into our Thursday, you need to be ready for our next round of rain showers that'll be moving in, and it will likely impact your Thursday morning commute. And then there we go, heading into the weekend with possibly 90-degree temperatures and more opportunities for rain showers. Yesterday we topped off at 85 degrees, and today we're forecasting 83. It's going to be a couple of degrees cooler, but hardly noticeable because really the trade-off is that we'll cool down those air temperatures, but the humidity starts to crank back up, so it's going to feel quite muggy outside. Let's take you out to the mountains, though, because this is going to be a comfortable place to be today. 72 degrees out there towards Banner Elk. Boone checking in at 75 for your forecasted high. Jefferson feeling good today, 76 degrees. From Morganton to Lenoir, let's plan for those low 80-degree temperatures. And again, getting a little lucky earlier in the day with some breaks of sunshine, but do plan for increasing cloud coverage throughout the day. Out towards the Charlotte metro area, again, rounding up those temperatures into the lower end of the 80s, so about 83 for your forecasted high in Concord, 82 for Monroe, and 83 for our good friends out there towards Rock Hill. This is our dew points over the next 7 days, so really measuring the moisture in the atmosphere, determining if it's going to be a muggy and sticky day. And once we start to see them really rise back into the mid to upper 60s, and surely with dew points into the 70s, you will feel that, especially as we're heading towards Friday and Saturday. This upcoming weekend is going to be muggy if you do have any plans. Here's our hour-by-hour forecast throughout the rest of our Wednesday. Temperatures mainly into the 70s as we're heading into the first half of the day. Into the afternoon, though, notice no more sunshine. It'll be all about the cloud coverage. Temperatures still right around our seasonal average, but those clouds are just the beginning of some changes that are ahead. This is our precipitation over the next 10 days, and we'll have several opportunities for rain showers. The first one, again, moving in for your Thursday morning commute. Small chances on Friday, and then they do increase back up as you're heading towards your Saturday. We're watching this tropical disturbance right right here, this area of low pressure just off the coast of Florida, Georgia, heading up towards the Carolinas. As it makes its way inland, it loses its strength. So really, this is just going to be a rainmaker for us. So we'll start to see the impacts of that again moving in on Thursday, and likely the highest rain total is going to be east of Charlotte. Let's walk you through that futurecast, though, breaking it down just a bit more. Here's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're picking up those kids after school, or if they have any after school sports events, I'm not seeing any issues there. Yes, a much more cloudier afternoon, and then those rain showers. There's 3 o'clock Thursday morning. So while many of us will still be asleep, those rain showers start to move in, but again, impacting that morning time commute, taking us all the way through the lunchtime hour. It's not going to be widespread. Not everyone will receive it, but a good portion of our viewing area will, and even some pockets of heavy downpours not out of the question. This is now taking us through our Friday. We'll start to see a few pop-up showers here and there, but generally we do have just a lower percentage for those rain showers to move in. All right, 7-day forecast. Here we go. Around 70, around 83 for our high today. Our average high for this time of the year is 84, so not too far off. A cooler day for your Thursday. We'll see those temperatures drop back down into the 70s. This upcoming weekend, boy, we are bringing that heat. Upper 80s, possible 90-degree temperatures on Saturday, but more clouds, showers, and thunderstorms are ahead. Stay close to our weather team and have a great day.
All right, great to have Majestic Storm telling us about our Wednesday forecast, and then obviously what's ahead for the work week. It is nice that we've had these gradual steps, not only in the temperature department, but in humidity, because the dew point's going to be way out of whack before we even know it. So it's great to have this type of weather. Take advantage of it if you can. I've been telling my kids for the last couple of days to do so. So we have a really great investigative reporter here at WCNC. It's great that our company really invests in this, and Nate does has filed so many reports that have obviously led to legislation, reports that have opened people's eyes. And unfortunately, we had a tragic event that happened in the middle of April, I believe on the 17th, where a bus overturned in Chester County. It was a deadly accident. A 13-year-old was unfortunately killed in this. And this was an odd occurrence. We don't normally see situations like this. And so it obviously was on Nate's radar to look into this, and especially being a district that is a public school district. I believe Lexington District 2, it's called, from around Columbia, the Columbia area. It was an event that they were heading to, or coming from, I would say, coming back from Charlotte, some type of school trip. But anyway, Nate, I'll bring you on now, and you can kind of talk about this. First, let's start with this. In this type of occurrence, and like I just said, this is odd that something like this happens, especially an overturned bus, whereas we finally learned from the investigation it was a blown tire. That seems a little odd. So that piqued your interest. Let's start there. How did you know something was here to dig into?
Right. So first of all, I was out of town when this happened.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of monitoring it. We were visiting family, and I was kind of keeping an eye on what was happening here. And kind of in talking to several people in the newsroom after, we realized that we wanted to pull the maintenance records. The school district had said a tire blew. That's who said that, right? The state troopers are still investigating this crash.
Okay.
But we wanted to know, well, what information there is about the history of this bus? Is there any information they've learned after the crash that maybe would help us better understand how in the world this could happen, right? There were 3 buses that came to Charlotte early in the morning and then drove home that afternoon. One of them reportedly blew a tire, hit a guardrail, flipped over. A 13-year-old boy died.
Mm-hmm.
Just terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Not the kind of situation that we as the public should accept.
Right.
Right. And so we finally got the records back earlier this week. And initially, there were more than 200 pages, Colin. I mean, a ton of them. And a few things jumped out to me. And I think most people, they would jump out to. But I really didn't want to come to any assumptions or conclusions yet, because this is really critical. We're talking about facts. That's what we're seeking here.
Mm-hmm.
We noticed fairly early on that within 2 weeks, just 2 weeks before this crash, the school district had to change another tire on that bus because it had some metal rod in kind of the side of the tire. To me, that seemed like kind of a freak situation.
Right.
Right? It could happen to anybody. And then you look back a couple years prior, 2023, the front driver's side tire had a blowout on the same bus, hit a guardrail. The high school football team was on the bus. To my knowledge, nobody was hurt. But again, it'd be easy to put out a headline that said, bus had history of tire problems, right? And I'm not an expert in this. I try to become an expert pretty quickly, but we were trying to kind of figure out, well, is there a story here? What do we need to kind of reveal? And I reached out to some folks and ended up getting connected with an attorney who's mainly focuses on tire failures on commercial vehicles.
Okay.
And then we started talking through it. Now, number one, in this big packet of documents the school district gave us, there is a handwritten statement from the bus driver who says he was driving back from Charlotte, passed a tractor trailer, heard a loud boom that sounded like it was coming from the front passenger side. The bus hit a guardrail, flipped. He says before they left that morning, he did a pre-trip inspection and deemed the tires to be all safe. Now, what we don't know is, did he do the same thing before they left Charlotte? It doesn't say in that document.
Right.
But we were also trying to figure out, well, were there quarterly inspections? Yes, check. I see that in the documents. Were there any other issues with this bus previously? And we did find these other crashes. And so when you look at these other crashes, then you realize that this bus, for the majority of the last 2 years, was not out on the road. Okay, the bus was made in 2019, according to these records. It's 2025. For most of the last couple of years, it's been out of commission, either in one auto repair shop or another. Now, again, I'm not an expert. I'm trying to learn about tires here because I've had a tire go flat quickly, but never a blown tire. This is like when the tread is basically coming off of the tire. That's what the assumption is that happened here. And we realized that, number one, based on the records, based on me looking through these records tons of times, I cannot find any evidence that the front right tire, if that is in fact the tire that blew, was ever changed. So a tire life expectancy, according to this expert, Matt Wetherington, an attorney that focuses on this, is right around 6 years. So this would have been nearing the life expectancy. It only had about 20,500 miles. But when we're talking about the life expectancy, that usage doesn't really matter. How long can the tire?
If it sits, right?
Yeah.
Dormant, yeah.
I mean, if you have a tire that's brand new but 6 years old, it's a problem.
Right.
Is what he's telling me.
Right.
It doesn't matter how much it's been used. So number one, we kind of see in the records that kind of indicate that that tire had not been changed. Also, this bus has been sitting in different places. We don't know if it was in a garage. We don't know if it was outside.
Right.
We don't know how
Exposed
often.
to heat.
Exactly.
Elements. Yeah.
We don't know how often people were checking the tire pressure to make sure it wasn't getting underinflated. Those buses are heavy. And I look at some Google Maps of the 3 different auto shops. It's hard to tell. I mean, at least the latest one, I can't see a garage that a bus would fit in. I can't see how a bus would be covered. I'm not saying that's what happened, but it could be a factor. And that's what's really critical when we look through these documents. I mean, basically, you're looking at possible contributing factors here: the age of the tire, the fact that the bus may have been exposed for long periods of time to the elements, and maybe the tread got brittle and the sides of the tires got brittle. When you inflate it, it could lead to a tire tread separation. And that's what the expert we talked to thinks ultimately happens. He says this isn't a situation, he can't imagine it is, where it hit something, right? The tire hit something and went kind of off or
Blew
whatever.
up or something,
Or a situation, it could be, where there's a defect with the tire, a design or manufacturing defect. So we still don't know the answer, but this does open up some new questions. Now, Lexington, South Carolina is not in our viewing area per se for WCNC Charlotte, but we have a sister station in Columbia.
We do.
WLTX.
WLTX.
Yep. And so the more information we can get out to the public, the better decisions they can make about what they want to demand of their schools or of this investigation.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, this attorney, and I know he's an attorney, but he's saying that the troopers, their investigation, it's not going to do a forensic exam of this tire. So if there's a defect, which there could have been, you're not going to really know. He's really thinking that the families involved should get an attorney, any attorney, who can have the expertise and resources to do a forensic examination.
So this is not over. Yeah.
I mean, I can imagine it is. And, and we're still waiting on this lengthy investigation, which I think will be revealing too.
So here's my next question, because I do know some inside baseball information, because I've seen some of your work here at home, right? Or not here at home, but here at the station. And I do know that you were looking at this law in South Carolina, right, as it relates to like the front axle. Do you want to speak to that?
Well, yeah, so there is an issue where there's a federal law.
Okay, that's a federal law.
There's a federal law that says you cannot have a retread tire on the front axles of a bus.
Yes.
Okay, so we don't know if that's a factor here.
Okay.
How do we know what kind of tire?
Okay.
But you know, again, the records don't show anything
It's
but
hard
the
to tell.
manufacturer tire on there.
Yeah.
They changed a couple of other tires on the left side of the bus.
Got it. But that
And
wasn't.
I've looked at the pictures of the bus that we can see. It was on its side. I really couldn't see
We
one
just showed
tire.
video. Yep.
Yeah, and it's the tire that
Yeah.
we think is in question, what the attorney thinks is in question based on what
Okay.
the bus driver said. So, I mean, the law prohibits that. Who knows
Yeah.
if this is even a factor here?
Right.
But it's one more thing to consider.
That's what I'm thinking. And that's what I'm saying, right? Like you have to do your due diligence to look through some of this stuff, and that brings me to my next point is why this is so interesting, because that point was not only did you sniff that out, but I think another viewers, right? They tend to see what you report on, and then they try to not necessarily give their 2 cents, but they try to help, right? Like, is this an open avenue? So it's nice to have that conversation with the public because we're doing the public's work, and it's nice to have that input as well.
And we got
So-
some of that information from a viewer
And that's-
who said,
yes.
what about the front tires? What's,
Yes.
You know, and I looked at the federal law at least.
Yeah.
And to see what that says. And I think, you know, again, we're not trying to jump to any conclusions here, but
Exactly.
we're getting whatever information is available
Yeah.
to help inform, because this kind of thing shouldn't happen. But you know what the attorney told me? The bus driver may have done everything right, and he couldn't have prevented this. If that tread separated, you may not been able to see
Nothing
that.
you can do.
Yeah, and they were airing up the tires. The records show as recently as March, the month before this happened, they checked the tires. They aired the ones up that needed it. So, you know, it's a few factors that could be in play here, and I don't know that we're going to have an answer until at least the Highway Patrol finishes their investigation, and perhaps if there's, you know, a legal civil investigation too.
So my next question would be, right, you've got all of these questions, not necessarily low-hanging fruit, but things that you need to grasp, right? So what would be the next phase of this? I mean, give us an behind-the-minds view in terms of where you would go, because you do have a lot of things to ask. I guess, do you just see where it goes from here, or what does that look like?
Well, let me tell you what I did, first of all, when I went through these records, and I talked to this attorney. Again, I'm not trying to assume anything. I'm trying to learn quickly about tires. And we're coming to these conclusions that I just shared with you all. And I said yesterday afternoon, I said, I'm going to email the district, and I'm going to tell them, here's what we're going to report tomorrow.
Okay.
Talk to an expert. Here's what your records show and what they don't show. And I want to give you the chance to dispute it or to provide additional context.
I love that.
And we didn't hear back from them. I gave them a morning deadline of today, which is a short period of time, but at the same time, I want to make sure that they have some time to huddle up and say anything that we need to know.
Right.
Because I don't want to be reckless.
Right.
It's not something I'm going to do.
But we can't pause the story,
Yeah, I mean, we got
obviously,
the
for a
information
week.
Monday, and it took a couple days for us to get to a point we felt comfortable sharing it.
Right.
It's not like we just threw it on TV or on
Exactly.
the web. And I'm proud of us for taking our time because you want to do it the right way. So previously, the district said, we're not going to comment on this. This was at Monday, so we're not going to say anything else about this because it's under investigation. So, you know, what I would hope would happen now is an internal review there at the district of all of their buses. I would imagine that kind of thing would happen, just to make sure all of their buses are getting maintained properly, and any that might be at a shop, check with the shop to make sure they're covered, check with the shop to make sure the tires are getting serviced, check to the shop, any shop and all records to make sure older tires are getting replaced. Again, maybe none of this is even a factor.
Yeah.
But these are things that are at least general reminders that could help better protect people moving forward.
Okay. Great stuff. So Nate's story will air tonight, right, Nate?
At 6 o'clock, yep.
6 o'clock. So look for that. It'll be on WCNC, WCNC Plus as well. And then if you miss it, you can stream it whenever you would like to. And don't forget, as I've said before, Nate has filed so many other stories, not necessarily relating to bus crashes, but on a myriad of things. One of the things that I believe you just won an award on, Buried, the series. A fascinating story that really is not over with,
Right.
but I know that you are intensely tracking. So this man does a lot of work, the entire team. He's got Shermer, one of our amazing photographers as well that he works with. So, hey, keep going at it. We appreciate it, and we're looking forward to the story at 6
Thanks,
tonight.
Colin. Actually, in the middle of the day today, we went up to Mooresville to interview a person for another story we're working on.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're always juggling a lot of balls, but
Right.
you want to make sure when you have the information, you're comfortable, you can share it
Right.
safely with
Right.
the public without being reckless. that we do that. And so I'm glad that we're given the time to do that because that's really important.
Well, I think it's great. You had said earlier, if anybody missed it, right, we just want to give people the facts on this is what this looks like, the situation, right? We're not telling folks not to ride school buses or they're not even that they're not safe, but just doing our due diligence to look through the entire the matter as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, look at too. This is a nuanced issue. It's complicated. You know, I could easily go on TV and say, "Hey, this bus had a history of tire problems."
Easily, that'd be a big headline that some of our competitors have. Yeah,
it'd be irrelevant. It may be irrelevant. That's what the attorney expert told us. But
right.
You know, we wanted to do it the right way to give the information that's meaningful and has some context and perspective.
Yeah, love it. Cannot wait again. Like I said, at 6 o'clock tonight for that story. Appreciate your time.
See you then.
All right, man. All right, we're going to go now to the Catawba County situation that continues to be updated every day as we are now 3 days away from when this initial situation happened. There was a press conference that we did carry live here on WCNC Plus. Just got to say that's why we always try to keep WCNC Plus on at home, because you never know when we're going to have live information streaming straight to you, updates on breaking news stories locally, regionally, even nationally at some points. So we learned from the county sheriff that he is infuriated with this mass shooting suspect that was given a bond of $200,000 placed under electric monitoring. Apparently, there was a second suspect, Toland Huff Jr., who is wanted for attempted murder. So those are the big headlines right now. Of course, we know one person unfortunately died in this. 11 others are recovering from gunshot wounds from this home on Walnut Acres Drive in Mountain View. So we'll go to this as just happened minutes ago, the update to the Catawba County situation.
ACLE. He's the FBI special agent in charge. And then Chris Laws, CHRIS LAWS. He's the SBI special agent in charge for this area. And then Chip Hawley, the director, will also join us, but he will not have a speaking role. Please let everyone go through their comments and save your questions to the end. Are we ready?
What was Chris Laws' title? I'm sorry.
He is the SBI special agent in charge. Mm-hmm.
Last name?
BAER. You guys good? Okay, I'll bring him in.
On silent, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Catawba County Sheriff Don Brown. Before Garen Killian's bond hearing today, I had a message to share with you about my gratitude for what all these law enforcement agencies are doing to help us investigate this tragic case. But now, I want to say that I am outraged. The first suspect we arrested in connection with this mass shooting was given a $200,000 bond. 3 days ago, I said at the press briefing that I'm sorry, that my responsibility as sheriff is to protect the lives and the property of the citizens of Catawba County. Now I stand before you today and tell you how difficult that is. As the sheriff of Catawba County, how can I, better yet, how can we, all law enforcement, protect the lives and property of our citizens when someone...
Monday.com is the best day for work, and here's why. Let me show you some of the mind-blowing things thousands of...
3 counts of assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, get out of jail on bond. I believe he should have never been back on the street after Hickory Police Department charged him with those crimes. He bonded out of jail on April 14th. 48 days. 48 days. Later, all of our lives changed. This is frustrating. It's infuriating. But despite my disappointment about this bond, this investigation continues. And I want our great community to know that to this hour, there have been 12 law enforcement agencies working hand in hand, pursuing leads and developing suspects. They are interviewing witnesses, collecting evidence, and processing an extensive crime scene. They have worked continuously since the call came in Sunday morning. The investigation thus far has spanned over 6 counties. There are facets of the investigation that are time-sensitive and fast-paced, and there are others, such as crime scene processing, which are slow and methodical so that we make sure that we get it right. The complete disregard for life by the individuals involved affects not only the victims and the people directly involved, it affects people throughout our community and well beyond that. This is evident by the calls, the posts on social media, and the conversations I've had with our citizens. But what I already know, but has been repeatedly confirmed, is that our community is amazing. The overwhelming support that we as law enforcement have received is incredible. For that, I thank our community. In closing, I commit to you, our citizens, that the law enforcement team assembled in this case will continue to work aggressively and continuously until everyone, and I mean everyone, responsible for these senseless crimes that shook our community to the core are arrested, charged, and prosecuted. Chief Bear.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. My name is Reed Bear, and I am the City of Hickory Police Chief. I'm going to echo some of what Sheriff Brown just said. It is beyond frustrating that someone with pending charges for multiple counts of attempted murder is out in the community in the first place. It is unimaginable that this same person can then be charged with additional charges from a separate incident to include attempted murder and could be out in our community tonight. We are regularly asked by our community members, why should they come forward with information about crimes being committed if the person is just going to be back in the neighborhood? And in cases like this one, it leaves me with no answer for them. Despite that, the Hickory Police Department from the beginning has worked with the Sheriff's Office and our federal and state partners. We will continue to work alongside the Catawba County Sheriff's Office and our local, state, and federal partners to bring all the individuals responsible for this heinous act to justice. We are very lucky that we have the close partnerships we do in Catawba County. And with the community's help, it will be these partnerships that lead to the successful outcome of this investigation. I'm going to turn it over now to Major Aaron Turk.
Thank you, Chief Bear. Thank you all in the media for coming. Let going to give you an update on our investigation at present and hopefully some forecast on where it's going. We'll certainly take questions at the end. If I don't get something that you're hoping to hear, please ask. As you already know, we've made an arrest in the case. You've heard a lot about Garen Killian. That arrest is for attempted first-degree murder. We're also now announcing that we have a charge of attempted first-degree murder on Tolan Huff. Huff is not in custody. We're looking for Mr. Huff, asking for the public's assistance in finding Mr. Huff, and we're asking the media to broadcast Huff's image and the outstanding charge so that he can be located. I'd be happy to.
Sorry for interrupting.
That's a good thing. So everybody get what they need? Okay. Also, we're going to announce today charges that are filed by North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement Division. They are going to offer specifics on those charges. Certain of that shooter was, if possible, and then who was the actual target or the recipient of that gunfire, person to person. As we establish that and gather competent evidence, we are in near constant consultation with our district attorney's office about charges. And we're filing charges that we feel like at this point are substantive and that our district attorney's office can take to court immediately and support by way of facts. Again, the FBI is still working on bullet trajectory at the crime scene. I don't know when they're going to be finished. I understand that work, again, is ongoing. We're going to travel out there and get an update on that here in the coming days. We do expect additional charges in this case, multiple persons, multiple charges. The gentlemen that have been charged and Mr. Killian that's been arrested will also be facing additional charges. One last thing, and then I'll eventually take your questions at the end. As you know, there's been a homicide in this mass violence event. We are looking at that homicide along with all of the other injured parties. We've received questions, and they're understandable questions, about why we have not charged someone in the homicide yet. Again, we have to be able to account for every shot, the shooter, and the intended recipients and the actual recipients of those shots before we can discern who might be responsible for the homicide in this situation. I'll be back later for your questions. Special Reporter.
Good afternoon. Special Agent in Charge Porter with North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement. We are announcing today that arrest warrants have been obtained for 2 individuals. They are the individuals believed to be responsible for organizing and hosting the party. The first one is for Mr. Raekwon Craig. He's been charged with 3 counts of aiding and abetting underage possession of alcohol.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay. There you go, sorry.
Do you see that one? And the other arrest warrant, similar for Mr. Patrick Tolbert. Same 3 charges of aiding and abetting.
We don't have that.
Don't have the second, okay.
We don't have that picture available.
That's all right. We can get that to you. But it's the same charge as 3 counts of aiding and abetting underage possession of alcohol by a person over the age of 21. I'll keep my comments brief, and then I can answer any questions at the end.
Good afternoon. My name is James Barnacle. I'm the Special Agent in Charge of the Federal Bureau of Investigation here in North Carolina. First, the law enforcement coordination on this investigation has been nothing short of astounding. I want to thank our partners at Catawba County Sheriff's Office and Hickory Police Department and the State Bureau of Investigation and Alcohol Enforcement, along as many other law enforcement agencies that have stepped in and helped on this investigation. The partners here are partners for the long haul. We are not in it for just this situation. We are in to work together to adjust crime across this country. When we got the call from Catawba County, we surged resources to assist the county with the evidence response team, investigators, agents, intelligence analysts, and scientists. Once the news of this tragic situation was relayed to the director of the FBI, Director Kash Patel, he called me Sunday and asked if the FBI or the local and state authorities needed additional resources. He surged lab personnel from Quantico down here to do a trajectory analysis of the crime scene. Director Patel also reiterated the FBI's top priority is to crush violent crime in the United States, and we will work on that here in North Carolina. The FBI has been working on the Walnut Acres road scene. We expect to wrap up our work this afternoon or evening. What we have been primarily working on is, as you have heard, we are processing evidence and we are looking for the trajectory of rounds. Let me add some perspective of why we have been there for 4 days. You've already heard at least 80 bullets were fired. Our teams are working to trace the trajectory of every single round. Once someone makes the choice to pull the trigger of a weapon, the bullet does not care where it goes. Our job is to trace where it came from and where it stopped. The FBI is uniquely qualified for this crucially important task of gathering evidence. In this case, sadly, gunfire hit victims. Other bullets went into the house, through fences, skipped off concrete, hit vehicles, and even burrowed into the ground. I was just out at the scene a little while ago this morning, late this morning, and our evidence response team has put lasers and scopes and trajectory. There's a lot of science behind it, but we will account for the vast majority of the rounds, including the round itself and fragments. We have recovered rounds from the scene. Finally, to the District Attorney's Office, the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina, to the citizens here in North Carolina, people will be held accountable for these heinous crimes. The FBI will work with our partners. We will continue to partner to address the violent crime here in the state of North Carolina. I will now turn this over to the State Bureau of Investigation.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Laws. I'm a special agent in charge with the State Bureau of Investigation in the Northwestern District. As you know, the SBI was requested by the Sheriff's Office on Sunday, and since Sunday and that day forward, there have been agents on the ground all across Western North Carolina from 4 different districts and multiple counties, from crime scene agents to investigators to other individuals with specialized skill sets that have assisted in this investigation and will continue. All resources at the disposal of the SBI and the state of North Carolina will be available here for this investigation, and we will be here until the end. Director Hawley's here and has assured us that we have whatever we need to assist our local partners, whether it's Hickory, Catawba County, any of the federal agencies, to make sure that the people are held accountable for these crimes that they have committed. These crimes are heinous, and having grown up in this community, are unbelievable. I agree with the chief and the sheriff that it's hard for us to go out, spend countless hours around the clock, arrest these people, and then they're back in the community. But rest assured, the SBI and all of these partners that you see up here will not stop until those are held accountable, are arrested. Thank you.
All right, I'll take your questions. Before we begin that, if you have a question for a specific agency other than the Sheriff's Office, we can get another of the representatives up here, but I'll start. Dave Fairdy.
Aaron, with the help from the FBI and them doing all the analysis out there, do you have a better picture on how many different weapons and people might have been involved in this gunfire now?
That picture is becoming more clear. Again, you've heard a lot about the trajectory work by the FBI. That's been invaluable. We understand there's multiple shooters. Again, you've heard multiple rounds. The last count I was given was 80, at least, that have been confirmed. We can tell you now that the shooting began from a neighboring yard that was an elevated position from the house where the crime scene is now being investigated. In response to that initial gunfire, other gunfire erupted from around the home itself and out into the front yard and by the roadway there on Walnut Acres Drive. We're trying to determine if that gunfire was initiated and then second gunfire was directly responsive, or if other shootings were taking place during that time. That's going to take us a while to discern, but as you've heard, we're going to find those answers and bring those people to justice.
Quick follow on that. So up on that hillside, at least one person was shooting down. Do you know how many people were up on that hillside shooting down at the party goers?
The evidence shows there were multiple people on that. I think you're referring to it as a hillside. We don't have an exact count to offer as I stand here, but more than one.
And the types of weapons, have you figured that out?
We're not releasing that right now. Yes, ma'am.
Do we know whether Sean Hood, the homicide victim, was the intended target?
We do not know if he was the primary target or perhaps even a sole target. He certainly was victimized in this, and certainly him and his family have suffered the most traumatic victimization from this. He certainly was a target, and again, as I talk about intended victims or intended recipients of gunfire than the actual recipients, we're working to discern if Mr. Hood was an intended target or just a victim that suffered his death during that tragedy. Yes, ma'am.
And where do you place Killian in all of this? As far as, was he in the yard? Was he, as far as for the intended?
Garen Killian. Garen Killian, our evidence is telling us, is among the persons responsible for the hillside shooting. We are looking at him, Mr. Huff, and others for that seemingly uninitiated and unprovoked attack. We're not going to offer specifics about suspects' involvement and by way of direct action at this time. I can tell you, though, from my understanding, that Mr. Killian, Garen Killian, and Tolan Huff are at least two of the defendants that have been charged in the City of Hickory shooting there at the Closed Party City. And so they're involved in that, and then now they're involved in this. Yes, ma'am.
Was that, so do you believe that that April shooting was connected?
We're not seeing any evidence right now of a direct connection, but we certainly hadn't ruled that out. Dave?
So the killing guy and the other guy that had the picture up with the charges, the single charge,
right,
the attempted. Do you think that those two, have you found that they were at the party prior to this? Something might have happened, they left and then came back.
We're hearing that, and we're trying to discern their exact movements and timeline. I can't offer articulate information on that as I stand here right now. I'll make sure that I get everybody. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Can you tell us anything about a motive or why the shooting took place yet?
We're certainly investigating and trying to discern the motive. We can tell you that some of these people are affiliated with gangs. They've made those admissions to us themselves. We do not know if this incident was a gang act in its entirety, or that some of the people involved are affiliated in gangs. We're working that as a motive and then other possibilities. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any clarity around if either Huff or Killian were the initial shooters?
I can't answer that with exacting determination as I stand here, but they were on the hillside when the initiation of the shooting began. Yes, ma'am.
Were the majority of the people at the party over 21 or under 21? I don't know if that's a better question for ALE.
I'm going to let ALE address that. And any alcohol-related questions or party promotion questions will be alcohol law enforcement. He's over here. Sir, go ahead.
Would you mind repeating your question for me?
Were the majority of the people at the party over 21 or under 21?
Can't say what the majority were, but we know that there were numerous underage and several juveniles as well. Yes, ma'am.
Is Patrick Tolbert considered a resident of the 1125 Walnut Acres Drive?
That is one that I will defer to Major Turk in the Sheriff's Office for right now. Yes, sir.
Could you please tell us how many people were shot?
I will also defer that to Major Turk.
He answers the alcohol-related questions and the party promotion questions.
Yes, sir.
And on the party promotion, and what do we know about that party? Where was it promoted? Who was the target audience?
So it seems that those details are still coming in, but that a lot of this is shared on social media, and that these move around. And a reason that we try to address these is that they are a common cause for violence like this. Just in this year alone, since January, we've investigated 9 such events where an organizer or promoter has coordinated an illegal alcohol event. And in most of those, ALE agents have uncovered alcohol violations, but also other serious criminal activity like narcotics and firearms. So we're very happy to work with Sheriff here and all the other partners to hopefully be able to prevent some of these things. Yes, sir.
Do we believe that the homeowners, whoever own this property, receive payment or compensation of some sort to host this party?
We're still working to figure that out right now. Yes, ma'am.
Those who were charged for this underage drinking, have they been arrested yet?
The 2 that I announced there, no, their arrest warrants are active, and we're seeking them at this time.
So as of right now, Killian's the only one arrested, right?
I'll let the major confirm that.
Did you believe anybody else was responsible for promotion, or do you think that the 2 that were arrested are the ones?
Charged.
Yeah.
We are certainly pursuing that to try to get anybody that is involved and responsible. Those 2 arrest warrants have been issued due to the facts that we believe allege their involvement in it.
Now, do you believe Mr. Hood was at all responsible for promotion or?
Still working to figure that out, and I'll refer it back to Major Turk. Thank you.
Party promotion question, do people pay to get into the party?
We're trying to figure that out. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, who hadn't asked a question yet? Anybody that hadn't got a yes, sir?
Could you tell us, Major, how many people were shot?
We have, I believe, 8 to 10 confirmed persons that suffered gunshots, and then others that were injured, perhaps as they were fleeing or otherwise there during the gunfire, but not actually suffering gunshots. Yes, sir.
Are any of those injured still in the hospital currently?
I don't have that information as I'm up here right now. All right, that's going to be it for questions. Thank you.
I have one more question.
All right, a lot of information, but that was the biggest information that we were able to put up on that slide. The suspect, Garen Nathaniel Killian, receiving that $200K bond. Obviously, this investigation in its infancy stages, so we will continue to keep you updated as we always do, both here on WCNC Plus, on our WCNC mobile app, and our linear platform, WCNC, of course, where many folks watch us as well. We do want to talk about the House Democratic leadership today. There was a press conference by 2 different representatives, Representative Pete Aguilar from California and Representative Ted Lieu from California as well. Now, this was their discussion about the budget bill that has been talked about immensely. Obviously, Elon Musk has eviscerated this bill over on X and other social media sites as well. So there seems to be some discrepancies between the House Republicans and even Senate Republicans on where they want some of this money to go. But a lot of this discussion is about folks losing their health care, Medicaid, Medicare. There's been some stats out that by 2032, nearly 10 million more individuals will be underinsured or uninsured completely. So some interesting statistics coming out, and we just want to give you the facts. So this is the press conference that happened a little bit earlier on what the House Democrats are going to say is going to happen in this budget bill, apparently.
Let me begin by saying that our caucus heard an update on the situation in Boulder, Colorado, and the horrendous attack that injured 12 innocent people. Anti-Semitism has no place in American life, and we stand with the Jewish community in this difficult hour and always. Republicans in Congress don't care if your health care is too expensive, and they don't care if you can't afford your medical bills. They voted for what Elon Musk called a disgusting abomination, a Republican budget that throws millions of Americans off of their health insurance. Republicans don't care if their tariffs are raising your prices across the board and making it harder to make ends meet. They voted to take away food assistance for families, seniors, and veterans, and they'll continue to reward billionaire donors who keep them in office with tax breaks so they can hold on to power. They're getting rich off of the stock trades while working people worry about losing their jobs. When confronted with the truth, they often just lie, or they show their true colors, like one Republican senator did by dismissing concerns that Medicaid cuts might lead to unnecessary deaths as a result of their disgusting abomination, kicking millions off of their health care. We're all going to die, she said. That is the Republican health care plan in a nutshell. And that's why Republicans can't be trusted to make your health care or anything else more affordable for working families. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. I also condemn the horrific terrorist attack in Boulder, Colorado. About a dozen people were burned, some critically, because of a terrorist who threw essentially Molotov cocktails at a group of Jewish Americans. And let me just be clear. Hamas is a genocidal, homicidal, extreme terrorist organization who attacked Israel, not the other way around. And now Jewish Americans in America are fearing for their safety because of folks who are committing brazen acts of anti-Semitism. We need to call it out when we see it, and I urge that the person be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law who committed this heinous terrorist attack. I'd like to now talk about Senator Joni Ernst's statement that we all are going to die. She is correct that we all are going to die, but it shouldn't be at the hands of Republican legislation. And the Republicans' big, ugly bill is going to cause unnecessary death. So then Senator Ernst doubled down on her statement and did a video of herself walking through a cemetery, again talking about what she said, and then she ended by citing Jesus. So I'm just a simple Catholic. But let me just tell you, I actually read the Gospels, and Jesus goes around healing people. That's what he does, right? He heals a woman who was blind. He heals a person who had leprosy. He heals a person who was paralyzed. 41 acts of healing in the Gospels. That's what Jesus did in terms of acts. So it's exactly the opposite of what Senator Ernst is saying. And call me old-fashioned, but I think the goal of government is not to hasten the deaths of Americans. It is to make the lives of Americans better. And clearly this big, ugly bill is not going to do that. And now we see some Republican members who are opposed to it because guess what? They didn't read the bill. So Marjorie Taylor Greene yesterday opposes a provision which is a 10-year moratorium on states regulating artificial intelligence. So I agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene once every 100 years. This is that time. I agree that this 10-year provision is extreme. It's going to cause unnecessary harm. And look, I think the federal government is fine doing preemption when we preempt with something. You can't just preempt with nothing. And this is a bad provision, and I hope the Senate will take out this 10-year moratorium.
Thank you, Ted. Questions?
A couple of your ranking members, Congresswoman Craig and Congressman Krishnamurthy, as well as some fairly senior members, are leaving the House to run for higher office. I'm just curious if you see this as an opportunity for any sort of sea change in the House, or just opportunities for kind of ambitious House members who maybe haven't had them.
I think Vice Chair Lieu and I have had the privilege of serving with a lot of members who have moved on to other jobs within public service, whether that's our former colleague and the Attorney General, Javier Becerra, to Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. Members are going to seek opportunities to serve their constituents in different ways. That's the blessing of being a House member, is folks will take opportunities. And then last cycle, obviously, we saw different opportunities with now Senator Andy Kim and Senator Gallego, Senator Slotkin, right, all coming from Lisa Blunt Rochester, all coming from the House. We take a lot of pride in that, the fact that we have some friends over there who used to be House members. So we take it as an opportunity for renewal, to hear from the perspectives of new members, those new members who replaced our former colleagues. But then personally, it's a point of pride that we now have the ability to bounce ideas off of folks in the other chamber. I said other chamber, not upper chamber, by the way, when we talk about the U.S. Senate. So this is an opportunity for us to continue to benefit from new ideas of those new members and build on existing relationships for those folks who have moved on to other jobs. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a debate in the Senate right now over Russia's sanctions package. Lindsey Graham, Richard Blumenthal are trying to push Leader Thune to bring that particular bill to the floor. I wanted to get the caucus's thoughts on imposing additional sanctions on Russia. And what do you make of the president's shift in tone towards Vladimir Putin? He's put out some recent, Truth Social posts saying that he's surprised by, Putin's unwillingness to engage in good faith peace talks. I want to get your thoughts on that.
I think many of us in Capitol Hill warned him in dealing with Vladimir Putin. And I think that you're seeing that now. This seems like the upside down, right? Donald Trump's former friends and Vladimir Putin and Elon Musk are now not besties. I can't keep track of it anymore. But Russia is a threat. We have voted for sanctions for Russia previously. We continue to view it through the lens of national security, and we will be willing and ready to make deliberations and votes if there are packages and proposals. But I think right now the effort that the Senate is undertaking is more of an effort to get Donald Trump to be supportive of Russian sanctions than it is to get the House of Representatives to be supportive of Russian sanctions. They clearly are trying to work Donald Trump to get to this position, and we'll see what happens in the weeks to come.
Vladimir Putin has repeatedly said that Ukraine is a part of Russia. And Putin attacked Ukraine, Crimea, and then when there was not a good response from the West, he attacked again Ukraine a second time. And my view is Putin will not stop until his troops are defeated on the battlefield. And I urge the Trump administration to understand that fact. And I believe the best way to get Putin to the negotiating table is to apply maximum pressure in terms of sanctions, give Ukraine what they need to defeat Russian troops on the battlefield, and then we'll get Putin to the negotiating table.
Nick?
There's a number of your members who are speaking at this Welcome Fest this week, kind of blue dog types. Is it helpful to your party trying to come together for these folks to be going so far out on an ideological limb?
It's helpful for members of our party to meet with outside voices, to talk about an agenda that puts working families first. And that's how I viewed those discussions, which is what is our strategy as a party to put working families first? How do we lower the costs that people face? Clearly, we're united against this one ugly bill that House Republicans passed that is now over in the Senate. And we will clearly work on different items to lower the costs that people face. We've talked often about those, child tax credit, low-income housing credit, all of these pieces that are so instrumental in helping working families get forward. So I think that that's always important to huddle with colleagues and friends and stakeholders to make sure that we're on the same page. And that's how I viewed the conference, but I wasn't there.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The Republicans were just in here. They blamed Democrats and immigration policies for the attack in Boulder, specifically because this individual was here illegally. Do you wish that Democrats over the last 4 years had handled the immigration issue differently?
I think right now we're thinking about the 12 people who have injuries as a result of the attack. I'm sure there will be.
And we want to end this a little bit early because we want to do our due diligence and make sure we bring you both sides. So earlier, my co-anchor, Vanessa Rufus, was able to catch the leader of the North Carolina GOP party for their response to the big, beautiful bill, as the president is calling it. So we'll let you listen to this until we hit near 4 o'clock, and we'll toss it over to Jane Monreal and Nick Sturdivant.
Until week 7, if you can believe, of those court proceedings. We'll continue to keep you updated on the very latest with that trial. Meantime, we want to come back closer to the Carolinas because we shared with you in our last hour of coverage here on Live Impact News, live images of North Carolina Dems protesting outside of Senator Thom Tillis's office. And this is regarding the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. We heard local Democrats urging Senator Tillis to vote no against this measure, and we heard them explaining some of their take, their concerns, they say, with cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP, and they say this is something that only really will benefit the wealthy. We wanted to bring in NC GOP to get the other side here. Let's bring in Matt Mercer with North Carolina GOP. Matt, thanks so much for joining us here on Live Impact News.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time. So, of course, we kind of explained in brief some of the messaging we heard from NC Dems in the last hour. We know that they're protesting outside of Senator Tillis's office until 3:30. This is all related to the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, I guess depending on which Republicans you ask, there might be more support and there might be less support on, once again, depending on who you ask. How does NC GOP see this piece of legislation, and are you fully in support of this bill? And if not, are there any tweaks that you might see, since we know that tweaks could be on the table now that it's in the Senate?
Sure. The One Big Beautiful Bill is really a great piece of legislation, and we do know that the Senate will leave their imprint on it, as they say. But by and large, I think when you see every Republican member from North Carolina supporting the House version, it's a strong bill. What it does is it prevents the largest tax increase in American history. Your viewers watching now would likely see their taxes go up if this bill does not pass. I don't think anyone wants to see that happen. But also some of the other things in the bill, things like no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, the $1 billion for border security, increasing the tax on college endowments and where we see that going. I think there's a lot of good things in this bill. We certainly support it, and we'll support the final passage of it when it goes to President Trump's desk in a few months.
Yeah, I mean, if we could talk a bit more about the tax increases that you alluded to. We heard a few moments ago you were talking about the fact that some folks would likely see that their taxes increase if this doesn't pass. This is we know, an extension. There's some measures to extend President Trump's 2017 tax cuts. I alluded to the fact that there are some within the Republican Party who are not fully on board with the situation. We see some of those concerns largely tied to the deficit. For example, Senator Rand Paul had been talking about how, this would be harmful in the sense of the deficit. So I guess, what is your response to those concerns?
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is just a real discounting of what economic growth can mean for our economy. When you increase growth and you have higher productivity, you increase GDP, you really take care of a lot of those concerns because you're also getting more money coming into the government when you cut taxes. And so those concerns, they're certainly valid, but also the work of DOGE and other efforts to cut spending, really can't happen in a budget reconciliation bill. And that's, I know kind of going inside baseball a bit, but those cuts really can't happen in that bill. And I think they're cuts that President Trump and the White House support. It's just the mechanisms to get them there. Those rescission packages have to come up in a little bit different way. So I would say that Senator Paul and others who may not fully be on board should be on board with keeping taxes as low as possible on the American people and American families.
Now, we'd heard from the Democratic side, including from some of the speakers today in that protest outside of Senator Tillis's office, speaking on their concerns with cuts to Medicaid and the SNAP cuts. And we saw several days ago North Carolina Governor Josh Stein tweeting his response to this passage of this legislation in the House, speaking on, for example, Threads, one of the social media platforms, saying up to 123,000 North Carolinians could lose access to health care, and NC would lose billions loans and Medicaid funding if this law goes into effect, and it will add trillions to the national debt. What is your response to that? Specifically the Medicaid funding concerns and the fact that it sounds like while this might cut some of the costs on the federal level, there are some concerns that this could kind of trickle down to the states and have the states be, in charge of more of the spending and see their costs increase on the Medicaid front.
Yeah, I certainly think it's no surprise that Democratic Governor Josh Stein opposes this bill because it falls in line with policies that he opposes. He, as a state senator, voted to increase taxes on North Carolinians, and he also has voted for other measures like that. And so